Chapter 2143. Boom! Thunderbolts rumbled like the might of the heavenly way, instantly enveloping everyone present. It was as though the entire heavenly abode had become a world of thunderbolts. In this world, there were not ordinary thunderbolts, but various kinds of heavenly thunderbolts and divine thunderbolts formed by the Dharma. When these lightning bolts fell, many of the young geniuses' expressions changed. They all began to counterattack. Some of them condensed their profound energy and formed a protective light barrier. Some of them took out defensive spirit augmentation treasures and activated the divine inscriptions on them. Some of the more powerful ones even unleashed their sovereign realm martial arts and divine abilities in an attempt to destroy the descending lightning bolt. Beside Yi Fei, Guiyun was also like this. In his hand, cyan shields condensed from profound energy appeared one after another, and actually continuously blocked several waves of lightning attack. Great Ice Seal skill! Another shout came from the distance. It was the crown prince of the snow cloud country, Xiao Yang, who had made his move. His body emitted a whistling sound of ice and snow. Then, the ice and snow that filled the sky condensed into ice and froze all the lightning that was falling from the sky. Roar! Xiao Yang's action attracted the attention of a divine thunderbolt dragon. The divine dragon danced and opened its mouth to spit out countless thunderbolts. It broke the ice in the heavenly abode and quickly enveloped Xiao Yang and the Prince of Heavenly River on the other side. Bai Lung's expression suddenly became extremely gloomy. He let out a ghostly howl. Then, he slapped out a terrifying black ghostly claw and tore the thunderbolt dragon into pieces. Yi Fei's expression suddenly became serious. Bai Lung's sharp ghostly claw had left a deep impression on him. Then, he heard the sound of thunderbolts exploding. The people of Western Qin who came in last were also attacked by the thunderbolt. Qin Wuyang's response was more overbearing than anyone else's. Qin Wuyang rushed into the thunderbolts and performed a set of ferocious punches and kicks. Yi Fei was surprised to find that Qin Wuyang was using a physical divine skill. Not only was his physical defense amazing, but his divine power was also terrifying. Many thunderbolts were shattered by his bare hands before they could get close to Qin Wuyang. Yi Fei was also on guard. These people are indeed the most outstanding young experts in Qing province. Their divine skills are definitely at the sovereign realm. I wonder how strong Lu Qianzhong's divine skill is? After seeing the divine powers of these powerful princes, Yi Fei quickly turned his attention to Lu Qianzhong, who was the first to enter. Not only him, but all the other young experts who entered would pay attention to the divine powers of Lu Qianzhong, the son of a divine emperor. However, to everyone's astonishment, Lu Qianzhong didn't use any special ability in this terrifying lightning world. He ignored all the lightning and walked towards the depths of Rizu's tomb. Beside Lu Qianzhong, there were 4 men and 4 women standing in 8 different directions. Every step they took seemed to have been planned, as they surrounded Lu Qianzhong tightly. In the sky above, there were 9,000 thunderbolts roaring. Originally, the first test of entering Rizu's tomb was to withstand the bombardment of thunderbolts. However, Lu Qianzhong seemed to be treated as a whole by the thunderbolts in the sky. Hence, the number of thunderbolts that targeted Lu Qianzhong wasn't just 1,000, but a total of 9,000. They were densely packed like a storm. Then, they fell down one after another. In the end, Lu Qianzhong and the other 8 people couldn't be seen near them. There were only endless thunderbolts that seemed to drown the heavens and earth. However, those who were able to enter this place were the most powerful young people in Qing province. Even though their vision was blocked, they could still see everything clearly through their divine senses. Surprisingly, none of the 9,000 thunderbolts fell on Lu Qianzhong. Instead, they were divided into 8 equal portions and landed on the 4 men and 4 women. The most peculiar thing was that none of the 8 people used any divine skills to block the thunderbolt. Instead, they silently absorbed the thunderbolt. They were attacked by countless thunderbolts. How is this possible? Not only can they absorb the thunderbolts that fall on them, but they can also absorb the thunderbolts that fall on Lu Qianzhong. The one who spoke was Gao Jun originally. He wasn't convinced that Lu Qianzhong was the son of a divine lord. However, at this moment, a trace of seriousness flashed across his eyes. Bai Lung, Qin Wuyang, and Xiao Yang, the princes of the three countries, were also shocked. They came for the inheritance of Rizu and had made a lot of preparations. However, it seemed that their preparations couldn't withstand Lu Qianzhong's calmness. Lu Qianzhong didn't seem to be aware of everyone's shocked and solemn gazes. He walked in front calmly and allowed his 8 subordinates to withstand the thunderbolt. How did Lu Qianzhong do it? Looking at Lu Qianzhong, a trace of shock flashed across Yi Fei's face. Then, Guiyun sneered with dissatisfaction. How dare you call His Highness Qianzhong's name? You don't even know about the 9-palace soul-locking formation. You're a disgrace to Medicine King Manor. In Guiyun's eyes, Yi Fei was just a subordinate of Medicine King Manor. Yi Fei wasn't angry when he heard this. Instead, he cupped his hands politely and asked Guiyun, "What is the 9-palace soul-locking formation? Little prince, please enlighten me." As he spoke, Yi Fei was also enduring the thunderbolts' attacks. However, when these thunderbolts landed on Yi Fei's body, they disappeared without a trace. Guiyun was shocked and couldn't help but take a deep look at Yi Fei. "You are someone that the Lord God has chosen, so you are one of us. There is no harm in telling you. 9-palace soul-locking formation. It is said that this formation was created by Divine Lord Bai Yun. This kind of formation allows humans to act as the formation and completely share the damage of the body." Using humans as the formation? Yi Fei's eyes turned cold. Even the Array sect of the land domain had never used such a method. He quickly activated his spiritual consciousness and started to observe Lu Qianzhong carefully. Seeing that Yi Fei's combat strength was strong and that he was worth roping in, Guiyun became much more enthusiastic. "According to my father, the 9-palace soul-locking formation is extremely difficult to set up. Not only does it require 4 men and 4 women to form the yin and yang forces, but it also requires that each of them have a strong blood meridian of the same attribute. Finally, the 8 of them must be willing to use their bodies as the core to operate the formation. Of course, once a formation like this is successfully set up, its power is incomparably great. For example, His Highness Qianzhong is using himself as the eye of the formation to distribute all the attacks to the 8 formation doors. As long as the 8 people's formation doors don't break, His Highness Qianzhong will never be injured." At this point, Guiyun looked enviously at Lu Qianzhong, who was striding forward. On the other hand, Yi Fei's face turned cold and he couldn't help but be furious. After listening to Guiyun's explanation, he knew that the so-called 9-palace soul-locking formation was an evil formation that harmed others for its own benefit. Lu Qianzhong had purposely transferred the damage that he should bear to others. In this way, he could advance triumphantly without being injured and enter Rizu's tomb to obtain Rizu's inheritance. As for the 8 people who were acting as the formation gates, they would become meat shields to absorb the damage that Lu Qianzhong would bear. Chapter 2144. At that moment, Yi Fei still didn't know whether that familiar figure was Zhao Yu, Lu Qing, or Shang Luo. However, no matter who it was behind the mask, Yi Fei couldn't just stand by and watch Lu Qianzhong obtain the Lightning Ancestor's inheritance using this evil formation that harmed others for his own benefit. Golden Body of Laws. Yi Fei no longer held back. Instead, he suddenly unleashed all his power in front of Guiyun. His body burned with purple-gold flames that soared into the sky. The 2 second-level nomological laws of thunder and decimation made the defensive power of the nomological golden body even more terrifying. The surrounding lightning couldn't hurt Yi Fei anymore. When it landed around Yi Fei, it turned into terrifying lightning. Yi Fei quickly turned into a lightning god again. he strode forward and chased after Lu Qianzhong, who had already disappeared in the lightning. This scene also shocked Guiyun greatly. His physical defense is actually so strong that he can actually directly resist this terrifying law of thunder? What is he trying to do? Does he think that he can compete with Lu Qianzhong for Rizu's inheritance? Guiyun was shocked by Yi Fei's strength. However, he was very angry that Yi Fei didn't listen to his orders and acted on his own. However, Yi Fei's actions made the others nervous. After all, they had all entered for Rizu's inheritance. They couldn't say anything if Lu Qianzhong was in front of them. However, Yi Fei, a nobody, was also in front of them. They couldn't tolerate it. I want to see how you can compete with Lu Qianzhong. Guiyun's eyes flashed coldly. There were no outsiders around. He wasn't as respectful to Lu Qianzhong as he was in front of others. He even took out a spiritual armor and put it on. Then, he abandoned his subordinates and chased after Lu Qianzhong. Yi Fei. However, even though Guiyun was fast, Bai Lung from the imperial clan of the Milky Way was even faster. He brought with him layers upon layers of ghostly shadows which were able to withstand the bombardment of the lightning bolts. Bai Lung was one step ahead of Guiyun. His ability is not bad. I also like his body very much. He will definitely be mine. Bai Lung warned as if there was no one around. This infuriated Qin Wuyang, who was on the other side. Suddenly, a fierce and domineering aura appeared on his body. He displayed an even more powerful physical mystique, and the speed at which he shattered the lightning became even faster. He quickly rushed in front of Bai Lung. Soon after, Bai Lung, Qin Wuyang and Guiyun's bodies stiffened at the same time. That was because a layer of ice had suddenly appeared on the ground, freezing them along with the ground. Cloud Snow Royal Family, Great Ice Sealing Technique. The three of them glared at Xiao Yang from within the layer of ice. Everyone, this crown prince will make a move first. Rizu's inheritance is too important. Even if it's Lu Qianzhong, this crown prince will not give in. Not only did Xiao Yang freeze the others, he also froze himself at the same time. He used the ice to withstand the lightning attacks. Although it was not as good as Lu Qianzhong and Yi Fei, it was still very effective. It allowed Xiao Yang to rush to the third position. On the contrary, Gao Jun, who was leading the Clear Cloud Pavilion, did not make a move. Instead, his eyes flashed with a hint of gloominess. I will let you guys fight amongst yourselves first. When you guys are exhausted, that will be the time for me to make a move. After saying that, a cloud of azure clouds appeared under Gao Jun's feet. He actually took advantage of the moment when Bai Lung and the other two were frozen to rush to the fourth position. Roar! Qin Wuyang's ice suddenly shattered. He let out a furious roar, followed by another roar and a ghostly howl. The sound was so loud that it covered the rumbling of the lightning. Not far away, Gao Sickle was trying his best to withstand the lightning attacks. Suddenly, he was disturbed by three loud roars. Gao Sickle's mind was shaken. The rolling lightning had completely drowned Gao Sickle. It even blasted Gao Sickle out of the grotto heaven and outside the dark fog. At this time, outside the fog, the various factions of the Baiyun nation had already gathered. They were all paying attention to the fight for Rizu's inheritance. Then, they saw Gao Sickle's figure being blasted out pathetically. These factions were all stunned. What's going on? The first to fail the test is actually Gao Sickle from the Clear Cloud Pavilion? After all, the Clear Cloud Pavilion was the #1 faction of the Baiyun nation. Gao Sickle was a direct descendant of the Gao family and was highly regarded by Old Man Qinyun. No one expected Gao Sickle to be the first to fail. Gao Sickle! Old Man Qinyun's angry voice came from afar. Yi Fei, I, Gao Sickle, am not done with you. Gao Sickle was so embarrassed that he wanted to die. If Yi Fei had not destroyed his physical body, he would not have been able to possess someone else's body. This caused his strength to drop greatly. Now, in front of everyone, He had lost all dignity. This was too embarrassing. Before old man Qingyun could come over in anger, Gao Sickle spat out a mouthful of blood. He was so angry that he fainted. The hatred he had for Yi Fei in his heart had deepened. Walking in the sky filled with lightning, Yi Fei suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. He had a feeling that someone was thinking about him from behind. Then, he felt 4 auras quickly approaching from behind. They were Xiao Yang, Gao Jun, Qin Wuyang, and Guiyun. In the grotto heaven world, the deeper one went, the more one could see each person's strength. Among them, Lu Qianzhong was the strongest. He advanced triumphantly without any injuries. Next was Xiao Yang. Not only was his great ice sealing technique powerful, but it also had a freezing control effect. It was hard to guard against. Gao Jun was the next. He was meticulous and was very good at seizing opportunities. Qin Wuyang's physical body was very terrifying. Guiyun's belt was stuffed with spiritual enhancement pills and weapons. He was a typical example of rich and overbearing. Emir Qingzhou has so many hidden dragons and crouching tigers. I really don't know what the strongest divine prefecture in the heaven realm is like. Yi Fei thought silently. He did not wait for the people behind him to come closer. He took a deep breath and ran wildly in the lightning. The golden body of laws exploded with a blazing purple-gold light, causing the surrounding lightning to pale in comparison. "Where are you going?" Seeing Yi Fei increase his speed, the faces of Xiao Yang and the others who were chasing behind changed. They also increased their speed and caught up with Yi Fei. However, no matter how fast Yi Fei ran, he was still slower than Lu Qianzhong, who was advancing without any injuries. Just as he ran into the depths of the lightning, Lu Qianzhong was already sitting cross-legged. He seemed to be cultivating in front of the stone tablet formed by the lightning. Beside Lu Qianzhong stood 8 men and women. They were like a formation door, guarding Lu Qianzhong. Yi Fei rushed over and saw that there seemed to be an illusory blood-red chain connecting them to Lu Qianzhong. What is Lu Qianzhong doing? Yi Fei suddenly felt a strong sense of uneasiness. Then, Xiao Yang, who was chasing behind, exclaimed, "Those are bloodline shackles. Lu Qianzhong is going to plunder the bloodline of those 8 people to improve his own bloodline? Strange, why would he do that?" Chapter 2145. Hall of Inheritance, Hall of Trial. Those with qualified bloodlines can enter the Hall of Inheritance and obtain Rizu's inheritance. Those with unqualified bloodlines can enter the Hall of Trial and undergo trials. Those who pass will obtain Rizu's inheritance, so that's why Lu Qianzhong brought these 8 followers in. Sharing the damage is only secondary. His true purpose is to plunder the bloodlines of these 8 people to strengthen his bloodline and obtain the recognition of the Lightning Ancestors' Inheritance Hall. Plundering bloodlines can be done outside. Why did Lu Qianzhong choose to enter Rizu's tomb? At this moment, Gao Jun, Qin Wuyang, Bai Leng, and Guiyun rushed over. They ignored Yi Fei and stared at the Thunder Tablet inscription while discussing Lu Qianzhong, who was strengthening his bloodline. Hearing this, Yi Fei's heart sank. Lu Qianzhong is indeed ruthless. Not only did he use the 9-Palace Soul Lock to benefit himself, but he also wants to plunder their bloodlines after using them. Bloodlines were innate to martial artists. The stronger the bloodline, the more powerful the natural superpower. Once the bloodline was stolen, it would be no different from a martial artist in the mortal world having his elixir field destroyed. His future would be bleak. Judging from Lu Qianzhong's cold and indifferent attitude, once he robbed these people of their bloodlines, he might even kill them to silence them. Yi Fei didn't know that Lu Qianzhong had chosen the Lightning Ancestors' tomb to plunder the bloodline power of the 8 people. Firstly, only after experiencing the lightning refinement could the bloodline power of the 8 people be completely stimulated. Secondly, Lu Qianzhong had been waiting for someone to change her mind. However, unfortunately, the other party didn't compromise even after being struck by lightning. In a fit of anger, Lu Qianzhong made up his mind to forcefully use the Nine Palace Soul Lock to plunder their bloodlines and obtain Rizu's approval to enter Rizu's Hall of Inheritance. At that moment, Lu Qianzhong noticed that Bai Lung and the others were approaching. He sped up the speed of stealing the bloodline. Under the control of Nine Palace Soul Locking Formation and Sir God's restriction, the 4 men and 4 women's souls and minds were locked. Even though they knew that Lu Qianzhong was robbing them, they could not resist. They could only watch helplessly as Lu Qianzhong robbed them of their most important bloodlines. At the same time, their sky palaces, fate wheels and spiritual souls showed signs of withering due to the robbing. Suddenly, the man on the right let out a miserable shriek. This person's bloodline was the weakest among the 8. He was the first to have his bloodline plundered by Lu Qianzhong. Lu Qianzhong's bloodline became even more powerful after he had his bloodline plundered. As for the man who had been robbed, all his vital energy and blood withered like a blooming flower. In an instant, he withered completely. But the Sir God's restriction on the man whose bloodline had been completely stolen was finally lifted. The dark iron mask cracked into 2 halves, revealing a pale and frightened young man's face. If this young man was not controlled by Lu Qianzhong, his future achievements would not be any weaker than ours. It's a pity that he has lost his bloodline and has become a cripple. I am not interested in such a rotten body. Bai Lung's voice was cold. Boom. Without the restriction of the bloodline, the unrefined thunder laws that had been accumulated in the man's body suddenly exploded. In an instant, the young man was blasted into pieces. Blood, flesh, and broken bones filled the air. Seeing this, Yi Fei's heart twitched violently. He could ignore this stranger's life and death. However, among the remaining 7 people, there was a familiar figure whose bloodline was also being robbed by Lu Qianzhong. Yi Fei could not ignore this. The flames of the nomological golden body on his body burned even more fiercely as he rushed towards Lu Qianzhong. As the entrances to the trial hall and the inheritance hall were near the thunder tablet behind Lu Qianzhong, no one knew that Yi Fei was rushing towards Lu Qianzhong. Everyone thought that Yi Fei wanted to rush into the trial hall first and plunder the treasures inside. Yi Fei, you slave, how dare you! Guiyun was completely enraged. In his eyes, whether it was Blackrock Peak or Yi Fei, they were all subordinates of the Medicine Manor. In the end, even though he, the master, did not say anything, Yi Fei, the subordinate, had repeatedly ignored his orders. Boom! Xiao Yang also made his move. The Crown Prince of Snow Cloud Nation suddenly activated the Great Ice Seal technique. The air instantly filled with cold air and froze Yi Fei. Scram! His body is mine. No one can touch it or hurt it. I want this body. I want it now. Bai Lung let out a sickly ghostly howl. He was a ghost baby and could not possess a normal body. Therefore, his greatest hobby was to collect the bodies of others. Yi Fei's body had undoubtedly piqued Bai Lung's interest. Therefore, when Xiao Yang attacked Yi Fei, Bai Lung suddenly rushed forward quickly, wanting to be the first to kill Yi Fei. Interesting. This person's golden body is extraordinary. If I can obtain it, it will definitely be of great use to my physical mystique. How about I join in as well? Qin Wuyang took a few steps forward. He was like an angry elephant, causing deep cracks to appear on the ground. Humph! In the end, Gao Jun coldly snorted. This person was truly good at seizing opportunities. Just as the 4 young experts were about to surround and attack Yi Fei, Gao Jun once again leapt into the air, using rising up the clouds to be the first to enter the trial hall. Boom! At this moment, the ice around Yi Fei, who seemed to be sealed in ice, suddenly exploded. Endless thunderbolts appeared on his body and then wrapped around his black iron heavy sword. They fiercely spread out in all directions. The terrifying strength that was comparable to that of a heaven monarch smashed the air and exploded it. Then, it rushed over again. Bai Lung was sent flying by the impact. Then, Yi Fei's body suddenly rose into the air. Just as the cracks created by Qin Wuyang's stomp were about to swallow him, Yi Fei lifted his sword and rose into the air. His feet coincidentally stepped on Gao Jun, who was rushing over. With a fierce kick, Yi Fei's divine strength and the weight of his black iron heavy sword, Gao Jun was stepped on. He fell to the ground like a meteor. As a result, Gao Jun, who was supposed to be the first to rush into the trial hall, was now the first to be stepped on by Yi Fei. Gao Jun was so angry that his eyes were bloodshot. The moment he stood up from the ground, a crazy killing intent exploded from his body. Bai Leng, Qin Wuyang, and Xiao Yang roared at the same time. They decided to join forces and kill Yi Fei. Only Guiyun hesitated for a moment and did not move. Instead, he sneered with disdain, "How foolish! No matter how strong you are, can you be stronger than the 3 royal families combined? I really don't understand my uncle. Did water enter the brains of my uncle and that Meng Shi to protect this person?" Chapter 2146. Another shriek was heard. Just as Yi Fei was being attacked by Bai Leng, Qin Wuyang, and Xiao Yang, another man beside Lu Qianzhong had his bloodline plundered. He couldn't suppress the lightning laws in his body anymore and his body exploded into pieces. At the same time, the moment that man exploded, the 3rd and 4th men let out horrified screams. Obviously, after sensing the conflict between Yi Fei and the others, Lu Qianzhong sped up his speed of plundering the bloodlines out of caution. Yi Fei's face darkened. If Lu Qianzhong was allowed to plunder their bloodlines at this speed, the 8 of them would soon die from Lu Qianzhong's plundering. "I don't care about the lives of others, but nothing can happen to her. Get out of my way!" Yi Fei roared as he circulated his golden body of laws to the maximum. He was like a furious god of war as he charged forward. Gao Jun, who was about to charge forward, hesitated when he felt Yi Fei's vicious beast's aura. "Humph, I'll let you all kill each other first. Even if I can't get Rizu's inheritance, Rizu's treasures will still belong to Clear Cloud Pavilion." Gao Jun used one step to clear Cloud again, while Yi Fei and the others were fighting. He was prepared to charge into the trial hall first. At this moment, Guiyun finally moved. He was as fast as lightning and blocked Gao Jun's path. Medicine King Manor and Clear Cloud Pavilion were archenemies. Now that both sides met, an intense battle broke out. It was a fierce battle. At the same time, Bai Leng, Xiao Yang, and Qin Wuyang's attacks landed on Yi Fei's body. Yi Fei didn't choose to block the attacks of the 3 royals. Instead, he used his golden body of laws to block the attack. Bam! Although Bai Leng and the other 2 were only in the sovereign realm, their powerful talents allowed them to have attacks that were comparable to the Lord of Heavens. When the attacks landed on Yi Fei's body, even with his golden body of laws, he could only block Bai Leng and Xiao Yang's attack. In the end, the golden fist formed by Qin Wuyang's physical mystique shattered Yi Fei's golden body of laws. However, Yi Fei also took advantage of the rebounding force formed by the 3 people's mystique. The moment his golden body shattered, he flew out like lightning. Moreover, the direction he flew out was just right, and he was flying in Lu Qianzhong's direction. Damn it! He actually used our power to fly towards Lu Qianzhong's direction. Zhao's expression was ugly. "His body, I must have it." Bai Leng let out a ghostly echo. "Kill!" Qin Wuyang's eyes lit up. Now that Yi Fei was flying towards Lu Qianzhong, it might be a chance for him to disturb and test Lu Qianzhong's strength. Without any hesitation, Qin Wuyang's body left an afterimage and chased after Yi Fei mercilessly like vicious beasts. Bai Leng and Xiao Yang were shocked. However, the moment Qin Wuyang made his move, the 2 of them also activated their natural mystiques in the name of chasing after Lu Qianzhong. Great Ice Seal Art. Ghost Corpse Claw. Savage Beast's Rage. Boom. 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 3 figures and 3 terrifying glows of martial arts were fired at Yi Fei with overwhelming murderous intent. Lu Qianzhong was also encapsulated by the glows of the 3 figures. Lu Qianzhong, who was still plundering the bloodline on the ground, suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were filled with extreme anger. A terrifying divine spear appeared in his hand. He activated the divine runes on it and stabbed forward. Boom! The light of the divine spear was extremely terrifying. It was like a lightning aurora that tore apart the heavens and earth. It turned around and enveloped Yi Fei, Bai Lung, Qin Wuyang and Xiao Yang. 3 explosions were heard. Bai Lung's natural mystique, ghost corpse claw, was instantly shattered by the terrifying spear radiance. Xiao Yang's great ice seal art was also destroyed by the blazing lightning aurora. It melted like ice and snow. Finally, Qin Wuyang let out a groan. He had used his iron fist to smash Lu Qianzhong's divine spear. However, his iron fist had been torn apart by the spear radiance. Get lost. Whoever dares to disturb me will die. Dong. The heavy spear was inserted into the ground. Lu Qianzhong was fighting against 3 people at the same time. His imposing manner was like an invincible spear god. As for Yi Fei, he was completely ignored by Lu Qianzhong. After all, he was a genius from the divine prefecture. Naturally, he wouldn't treat a young talent from a small place like the Qing prefecture as a joke. However, in his eyes, he would not put a mere subordinate of the medicine manner in his eyes. Yi Fei's expression instantly turned gloomy when he felt Lu Qianzhong's invisible disdain. He did not retreat. Instead, when Lu Qianzhong unleashed his divine might to fight against the 3 of them, Yi Fei suddenly raised his sword and slashed at the bloodline shackles binding Lu Qianzhong. Yi Fei's strength was not inferior to Lu Qianzhong's. In fact, it was slightly superior. This sudden scene stunned Bai Lung and the other 2, as well as Gao Jun and Guiyun, who were fighting. Yi Fei is crazy. He is not rushing towards the trial hall. He is rushing towards Lu Qianzhong. Bai Lung, Xiao Yang and Qin Wuyang's expressions changed. However, they did not continue to attack Yi Fei. Firstly, Lu Qianzhong's aura was too terrifying. Secondly, Yi Fei's actions were too crazy. He knew that Lu Qianzhong was the son of a divine lord and his strength was unfathomable. However, he still wanted to stop Lu Qianzhong from seizing the bloodline shackles in front of everyone. Then, a terrifying killing intent erupted from Lu Qianzhong's body. Without saying a word, a divine spear with boundless death aura shot towards Yi Fei and pierced through Yi Fei instantly. When the masked lady felt Lu Qianzhong's tsunami-like killing intent, her body suddenly trembled violently. She seemed to want to stop the killing and remind Yi Fei to leave quickly. However, the powerful restriction of the Divine Lord prevented her from saying or doing anything. She moved. You don't have to say anything. I understand. I will definitely save you. Even if I have to sacrifice my life, I will definitely save you. Boom. Lu Qianzhong raised his dark steel heavy sword forcefully. However, he didn't use it to block the death spear behind him. Instead, he used it to sever the bloodline shackles of the 4 ladies at the same time. This made Lu Qianzhong roar furiously for the first time. The divine spear became even more terrifying. Yi Fei's back. However, Lu Qianzhong's spear didn't kill Yi Fei. At the crucial moment, a spiritual enhancement jade pendant floated out from Yi Fei's neck. This was a life-saving item given to him by the heavenly Tao tree. With the protection of this jade pendant, Yi Fei successfully blocked the fatal attack behind him. Chapter 2147. You are courting death. Lu Qianzhong's roar was more terrifying than a divine demon's roar. The divine spear in his hand turned into a terrifying and mysterious light and pierced through the void. Bai Lung and the other 2 were shocked. That is Lu Qianzhong's natal superpower, Lightning Spear. The natal superpower was the strongest attack of a bloodline warrior. Especially Lu Qianzhong, who was the son of a divine lord. His natal superpower was even more terrifying. Everyone saw a flash of lightning tearing through the void and appearing behind Yi Fei in an instant. When Lu Qianzhong threw out the divine spear, he formed a seal with both hands. Although Yi Fei had broken Lu Qianzhong's bloodline shackles, he had also broken Lu Qianzhong's 9-palace soul-locking array. However, he was still unable to break the Divine Lord's seal with his strength. Lu Qianzhong took advantage of this and suddenly activated the Divine Lord's seal. Suddenly, Lu Qianzhong activated the Divine Lord's seal. There was a loud boom and the terrifying aura of a Divine Lord exploded from the faces of the 4 girls. This aura not only broke the dark Qi dragon that was binding them, but it also caused the thunder of the order that was suppressed in their bodies to erupt like a volcano. Yi Fei was also engulfed by Lu Qianzhong. They were completely submerged, especially their bodies, which became incomparably heavy. Yi Fei's expression became extremely solemn. Lu Qianzhong had undoubtedly given him a huge challenge. As his dark qi was unable to support the 4 girls and there was an aura of death behind him, he only had 2 choices. He could either give up on the 4 girls and turn back to defend against Lu Qianzhong's natal superpower, or he could continue to ignore Lu Qianzhong's attack and save the 4 girls with all his might. This would also stop Lu Qianzhong from stealing other people's bloodline warriors and entering the inheritance hall to obtain Rizu's inheritance. Let's go all out. Yi Fei quickly made a decision. He ignored Lu Qianzhong's attack again. Just as the celestial dragon of heaven's collapse was about to land on the ground, Yi Fei dashed over and grabbed one of them with each hand. There were 2 more under his armpits. The terrifying divine power in his body exploded at that moment. Even though the 4 women were as heavy as mountains under the Sir God's seal, he still carried the 4 mountains and took big strides forward. He rushed towards the divine thunderbolt tablet. Below the tablet there were a total of 2 teleportation runes. It was obvious that they were used to enter the inheritance palace and enter the trial. The entrance to the refining hall. Yi Fei's soul superpower. But he is a divine lord's divine lord. However, he has helped us a lot. Originally, Lu Qianzhong had a high chance of entering the inheritance hall to obtain Rizu's inheritance. But now Yi Fei has broken his bloodline shackles and stolen the 4 girls. He has also destroyed Lu Qianzhong's hopes of entering the inheritance hall. Because of this, Bai Lung and the other 2, as well as Gao Jun, who hated Yi Fei to the core, didn't attack. They allowed Yi Fei to rush towards the refining hall. Yi Fei, I want you dead! Lu Qianzhong roared furiously. Just now, his natal superpower had clearly pierced Yi Fei. Unfortunately, the soul enhancement jade token on Yi Fei blocked his attack again. After all, the soul enhancement jade token had been refined by a half-step divine lord. It wasn't that easy to break it. Instead, Yi Fei took advantage of this time to carry the 4 girls and rush into the refining hall. This had completely destroyed Lu Qianzhong's hopes of entering the inheritance hall. How could Lu Qianzhong not be furious? How could he not be furious? Boom! The long spear turned into lightning and returned to Lu Qianzhong's hand. His body emitted a shocking murderous intent and coldness. Lu Qianzhong held the long spear and rushed into the trial hall at lightning speed. He was extremely furious. Inside the refining hall, it was actually a long flight of stairs. It was unknown how long the stairs were. When Yi Fei entered, he saw that there was a thundercloud at the end of the stairs. Above the thundercloud, there was a huge platform covered in lightning. It gave off a very oppressive aura. Yi Fei's breathing became heavier when he sensed this aura. However, he had no choice. Lu Qianzhong could catch up with him at any time. Judging from the battle just now, he wasn't a match for the son of a divine lord. What he could do now was to rush in and get as far away from Lu Qianzhong as possible. I will rush up the stairs now. Hopefully, I can remove these damn divine lord restrictions before Lu Qianzhong catches up with me. Since he had already saved them, he couldn't abandon the other 3 girls halfway. After thinking for a while, Yi Fei suddenly took out 3 pieces of black clothing that he wore and covered the 3 girls along with their masks. This way, they wouldn't be able to use their consciousness to sense their surroundings under the Divine Lord restrictions. Their heads would be covered by the black clothing. Hence, they wouldn't be able to see the situation outside. In this way, Yi Fei was relieved. He threw the 3 girls into the beast mark space and instructed Xiao Chao and the dragon turtle to watch over them carefully. However, just as Yi Fei was about to do the same to the 4th girl, a sharp glint flashed across her eyes even though he couldn't see her eyes clearly. Yi Fei instantly felt a little guilty. If the girls were Lu Qing and Shangluo, it would be fine. However, if they were the tigress Zhao Yu, he would throw her into the beast mark space like goods and cover her head with the black clothing. The consequences would definitely be very serious. Cough cough. Don't worry. I will help you remove the Divine Lord restrictions now. Since he couldn't put them into the beast mark space, Yi Fei could only carry them on his shoulders again and rush up the stairs. Boom. When he rushed up the stairs, a huge pressure suddenly appeared on the surrounding stairs. The higher he went, the more terrifying the pressure was. Yi Fei die! Lu Qianzhong roared furiously at the bottom of the stairs. He could have stolen the bloodline and directly entered the inheritance palace to obtain Rizu's approval. However, Yi Fei's destruction had completely ruined his plans. At this moment, in Lu Qianzhong's eyes, Yi Fei was no longer a nobody. He was someone he had to kill. He was an enemy he had to kill. Hearing Lu Qianzhong's roar, Yi Fei's expression changed. He didn't say anything and ran even faster while carrying the girl. As he ran, Yi Fei asked, "Oh right, who are you? Can you speak?" There was no response. Yi Fei's expression darkened. He realized that he was carrying the girl upside down. She was facing his buttocks and not his head. Even if she spoke, he might not be able to hear her. My mistake. I will turn you around now. While running up the stairs, Yi Fei hurriedly turned her around. However, her head was facing down and he still couldn't hear anything. In the end, Yi Fei had no choice but to hug her. Finally, he could see the girl's face. Under the dark iron mask, he could only see a pair of blurry eyes. He still couldn't hear anything. In the end, Yi Fei did not give up. He switched from hugging to hugging. He placed the woman's head close to his, hoping to hear something. The woman's eyes kept blinking as though she was saying something. However, her voice was completely blocked by the Divine Lord restriction on the black iron mask. Chapter 2148. Suddenly, he formed a sword finger with one hand and pointed it at the mask on the lady's face. There was a loud bang. Not only was the sword finger unable to damage the black iron mask, but it also accidentally triggered the restriction on the mask. A strong rebounding force almost caused Yi Fei to roll down the stairs. The lady, who was originally in his arms, was also about to roll down the stairs like a heavy mountain rock. Yi Fei's expression changed instantly. At the crucial moment, he did not think too much. When he was about to be knocked down, his hands were tightly holding onto the lady's body. His back was constantly rubbing against the stairs. Even the spirit enhancement Jade token was unable to withstand this sliding force. With a bang, the spirit enhancement Jade token finally shattered completely. When the spirit enhancement Jade token shattered, Yi Fei instantly felt a heart-wrenching pain from his back. His back started to rub against the stairs violently, leaving behind a ghastly trail of blood. Even so, Yi Fei did not let go. He only hugged the lady tightly and continued to slide down more than 10 steps. Finally, the rebounding force from the Sir God restriction in his body disappeared. Yi Fei roared loudly and jumped up. He habitually grabbed onto the lady's thigh and swung it around. Once again, he carried her on his shoulder and continued to rush forward. However, he did not notice that he was still carrying the lady upside down this time. The lady was facing Yi Fei's badly mutilated back. There were countless stone fragments that were deeply embedded in his flesh. This caused the lady's eyes to tremble unconsciously. When Lu Qianzhong saw this scene, he was about to explode in anger. So it's you. You were the one who triggered the restriction in the palace? No wonder you ruined my plans. You lowly commoner from the land. Boom. Lu Qianzhong's words caused Yi Fei's soul to tremble. His identity as someone from the land was a secret. Could it be that she told Lu Qianzhong? Why did you tell him that we are from the land? Yi Fei was suddenly a little angry. Once someone from the land entered the heaven, they would be sealed by the heaven. It could be seen that some powerful existences in the heaven harbored evil intentions towards the people from the land. If the heaven realm discovered that a large number of people from the land had entered the heaven realm, it might attract the attention of some powerful beings who were filled with malice towards the land realm. The woman did not answer, nor was she able to answer. Only then did Yi Fei realize that if he did not break the mystic iron mask and the divine lord restriction, he would not even know who the woman was, much less hear her words. Boom. While Yi Fei was delayed on the stairs, Lu Qianzhong's roar, which was filled with killing intent, was heard from 100 steps behind him. This voice was rapidly approaching. He turned around and saw that Lu Qianzhong had actually ignored the suppression of the stairs. Just like Yi Fei, he was running wildly on the stairs. His speed was even faster than Yi Fei's. After all, Yi Fei was running with the woman on his back. Compared to Lu Qianzhong, who was running with a light load, it was naturally more strenuous. Feeling the roar behind her, the woman's eyes continuously blinked as if she was very anxious. Yi Fei also sighed. Are you asking me to leave you behind and run away by myself? It's a pity that I can't do that. I came to the heaven realm to find all of you and Wang Bai. If I say something, I will definitely say it. After saying that, Yi Fei did not hesitate anymore. He directly threw the woman into the beast mark space. Xiao Chao saw that Yi Fei did not cover the woman's head this time. Xiao Chao immediately became anxious. The secret of the beast mark space was going to be exposed. On the other hand, the dragon turtle proudly expressed to Xiao Chao that it actually had a better method than Yi Fei using the black cloth to cover his head. The dragon turtle quickly took out the newly repaired black pot and activated the divine patterns on it. At the same time, it had already placed the 3 women, along with the one that Yi Fei had just thrown into the black pot. It was placed upside down on the ground. Xiao Chao stared at him with her eyes wide open. On the steps, Yi Fei was so frightened that he broke out in cold sweat. Lu Qianzhong, who was trying to kill him, was really too terrifying. At this moment, they had already rushed to the middle of the steps. The pressure here had already become so strong that even he, who had the divine power of the Lord of Heaven, found it extremely strenuous. Lu Qianzhong did not fall behind at all. If I had not severed his bloodline shackles, damaged his bloodline and rushed into the training hall in advance, I'm afraid that he would have caught up to me. No, I must not let him catch up to me. Lu Qianzhong, take my sword. Boom. Knowing that if this continued, Lu Qianzhong would catch up to him sooner or later, Yi Fei suddenly turned around. He raised his hand and a ray of sword light slashed down. You're just an ant from the land. How dare you dream of competing with me, a genius from the divine prefecture? How laughable! Lu Qianzhong sneered as he looked at Yi Fei with disdain. At the same time, he raised the divine spear in his hand again and fiercely thrust it forward. However, this spear did not hit Yi Fei. Just as Lu Qianzhong thrust his spear, a mysterious black hole suddenly appeared on the steps and completely suppressed Lu Qianzhong's attack. Your attack is ineffective. You cannot use martial arts on this step. Yi Fei's sword light had just appeared when it was swallowed by the mysterious black hole. Obviously, Rizu's test had already begun when they walked up the steps. In order to make the test fairer, Rizu had not only added more restrictions on the steps but also the divine prefecture. Renzu had also set up restrictions that prevented martial arts from being used. In this way, Those who wanted to pass the test and obtain Rizu's inheritance would not be able to use trick. They could only rely on their own strength to obtain victory step by step. I see. Martial arts cannot be used on this step. Aunt, you're lucky this time. I'll let you live until the end of the steps. Lu Qianzhong's tone was sinister as he suddenly put away his divine spear and increased his speed. Yi Fei was shocked to discover that Lu Qianzhong had not used his full strength previously. It was obvious that he had left some leeway and was guarding against Yi Fei. It was only when he realized that martial arts could not be used on the steps that he unleashed his full strength. What a terrifying strength! Then, Lu Qianzhong quickly rushed up the steps that Yi Fei was standing on. While Yi Fei was concentrating on guarding against Lu Qianzhong's sudden counterattack, Lu Qianzhong looked straight ahead and completely treated Yi Fei as air. He lifted his foot and rushed up even higher step. Since Lu Qianzhong knew that martial arts could not be used on the steps, he did not even have the interest to look at Yi Fei. He just arrogantly started climbing up the steps to be the first to pass Rizu's test. Yi Fei did not say anything when he sensed Lu Qianzhong's contempt. He suddenly clenched his fists as a firm thought appeared in his mind. Lu Qianzhong, I must defeat him. Dong. Yi Fei did not continue fighting with Lu Qianzhong. Since Rizu's test had begun, he began to use all his strength and focus on climbing the steps that led deep into the lightning. At the bottom of the steps stood Bai Ling, Qin Wuiyang, Xiao Yang, Gao Jun, and Gui Yun. Their gazes were very solemn. Just now, they had personally witnessed the battle between Yi Fei and Lu Qianzhong. They had also seen the uniqueness of the step. They had thought that the moment they stepped on the steps, Rizu's test would begin. Chapter 2149. Boom. As a large number of martial artists rushed up the steps, the pressure on the steps became even greater. This made everyone's expression turn ugly. What's going on? Why is it that nothing happened to Yi Fei and Lu Qianzhong, but the pressure suddenly multiplied when we went up? On the steps, the increase wasn't as simple as the divine might of the human ancestor. This flight of steps was divided into upper, middle, and lower sections. As the pressure on the lower section increased, the pressure on the middle section also became stronger. Finally, because the upper section was deep into the thunderclouds, the divine might was increasing at the same time. As Renzu's divine might passed Yi Fei and rushed to the upper section, terrifying lightning pillars suddenly exploded. These light pillars were formed by the laws of lightning. It was almost endless. It was as if the entire void had been refined by Rizu into lightning. It had evolved into a huge lightning tablet that was suspended at the end of the step. On it was written clearly, "If you want to obtain Rizu's inheritance, you have to step onto the upper section of the lightning ancient path. At that time, you have to withstand the bombardment of lightning. Only the top 5 people can obtain Rizu's recognition and enter the real tomb of Rizu." This was also the reason why Lu Qianzhong couldn't attack on the step. The moment they stepped onto the steps, the test of Rizu's inheritance had already begun. When Lu Qianzhong was the first to step onto the upper section of the steps, the test had also developed to its most intense stage. The rainbows and waterfalls completely drowned the path on the upper section of the step. In order to pass the test, all the martial artists present could do was to use all their strength to resist the terrifying lightning attack. Then, they would strive to be in the top 5 and pass the test. How could there only be 5 martial artists present? Lu Qianzhong, Yi Fei, Bai Ling, Qin Wuiyang, Xiao Yang, Gui Yun, and Gao Jun. There were already 7 of them. Not to mention, there were more than 10 martial artists at the lower section of the steps who were crazily rushing towards the middle section. As for Bai Ling and the rest who were still in the middle section, their gazes also turned cold. Seeing that Yi Fei was ranked second, Gui Yun could no longer hold himself back and angrily roared, "Yi Fei, why aren't you getting down here? As a subordinate of the medicine manor, what right do you have to be ranked in the top 5 in front of me, your master? Get him down here." He's just a stray dog that escaped into the Bayou Nation. How can he be compared to us? Gao Jun will definitely be in the top 5 this time. Gao Jun, Qinyun Pavilion is nothing. You're just a traitor. The top 5 positions will be taken by the 3 royal families. It was unknown when Bai Lung, Xiao Yang, and Qin Wuiyang had formed a temporary alliance. At this moment, they were standing side by side, using their advantage of rushing up the stairs first to completely block Guiyun and Gao Jun's path. Then, the 3 of them stood side by side, rushing forward at their fastest speed. Yi Fei rushed towards the middle section of the steps. Brother Yi, since you've disrupted Lu Qianzhong's entry into the Hall of Inheritance, Snow Cloud Nation will not make things difficult for you. As long as you give up the second place, Xiao Yang said coldly. Those who were able to reach the top of the steps were the most talented youths in Qingzhou. Xiao Yang knew that there was a huge difference between first and fifth place. Lu Qianzhong was too powerful, and they couldn't compete with him. However, Yi Fei was just a small force with no backing. How could the 3 royal families care about Yi Fei? Even Bai Ling, who hated Yi Fei the most, nodded coldly. If you give up the second place, I can spare your life temporarily. After all, your body is too beautiful. I really don't want to destroy it with my own hands. Staring at Yi Fei's body, Bai Lung revealed a fanatical look. Yi Fei got goosebumps when he heard that. He looked at Qin Wuiyang and said coldly, "What about you, Prince of West Qin? How do you intend to threaten me?" "Threaten you? Are you worthy of being threatened by me? I heard that you turned to the flying serpent and became its slave? You're not even qualified to be my opponent. Get lost. Don't block my way." Boom! Suddenly, a horrifying aura of vicious beasts emerged from Qin Wuiyang's body. Then, he activated his heavenly palace and fate wheel and strode towards the steps where Yi Fei had stopped. Bai Lung and Xiao Yang sneered at the same time. Seeing that Yi Fei had no intention of giving up, they activated their heavenly palace and fate wheel. They also activated their heavenly palace fate wheels and began to sprint with all their might. Yi Fei's expression turned cold. Bai Lung and the other 2 understood the importance of being in the top 5. So did he. Even though the top 5 would be recognized by Rizu, the recognition of the first place and the recognition of the fifth place were completely different. Not to mention other things, the treasures that could be obtained after passing the test would be greatly different. How could he give up the second place just because of the threat of the 3 royal families? No, not second place. Since I, Yi Fei, have participated in this test, I only have one goal, which is to be first. Bai Lung, if you want to be second, then go and compete with Lu Qianzhong. Because I will not be second, especially in this thunderstorm. The golden body of laws was burning fiercely. Yi Fei put away his dark iron heavy sword and got rid of all the burdens on his body. He began to walk forward with large strides. The pressure in the surrounding space was getting stronger and stronger, but this could not stop Yi Fei. Even though Yi Fei was not as powerful as Lu Qianzhong, who could rush from the bottom to the top in one go, he had an advantage that Lu Qianzhong did not have. That was the immortal sword soul, which could absorb all the energy in the world. This energy naturally included the power of the thunderstorm that Rizu had left behind. Lu Qianzhong, if there was only Rinzu's divine might on this step, I might lose to you. Unfortunately, there is not only divine might on this step, but also endless thunderstorm. Then, I will have a chance to turn the tables. I want you to take back your contempt. I want to trample on your arrogance, pride. Dong. Yi Fei stepped onto the top of the step. The endless pressure instantly turned into terrifying thunderstorm. It was like a violent waterfall, crashing down on Yi Fei's body. Even Lu Qianzhong, who was at the front of the step, found it difficult to move forward. He could only use his bloodline power to refine the thunderstorm. The thunderstorm moved forward with difficulty. On the other hand, Yi Fei ignored the thunderstorm and the omnipresent pressure from Renzu. He had to use his body to resist the thunderstorm. Yi Fei simply ignored it. When the golden body of lightning covered his body, he had already opened his sky palace and awakened his immortal sword soul. Immediately, Yi Fei's entire body seemed to have turned into a huge whirlpool as he frantically absorbed all the lightning energy that came close to him. His footsteps became faster and faster within the lightning, and he was getting closer to Lu Qianzhong, who was walking in front. Chapter 2150. Get Lost. Yi Fei smiled, and his smile was very cold. When you can catch up with me, you can say this to me again. Genius of the divine land? Dong. Yi Fei lifted his leg and stomped on the ground again. When he passed by Lu Qianzhong, he was already in front of Lu Qianzhong and had regained the first place. First place. Yi Fei actually surpassed Lu Qianzhong and became the first place. At the end of the steps, more than a dozen young martialists shouted in shock. In their eyes, Lu Qianzhong, who was the son of the Divine Lord and had a Tao Lord as his follower, was an insurmountable mountain. However, at this moment, someone had stepped on this mountain right in front of Lu Qianzhong and shattered the myth that Lu Qianzhong was invincible. This. Guiyun widened his eyes in shock. In his heart, Yi Fei had always been a subordinate of the Medicine King Manor and a slave that he could order around. However, when he saw the thunderous figure on the steps, Guiyun realized how laughable his reprimand of Yi Fei had been. Bai Ling and Gao Jun's faces turned ugly. The Sky River royal family and Clear Cloud Pavilion had grudges against Yi Fei. They definitely did not want Yi Fei to be the first to reach the top. Charge up and surpass him. The three royal families must not lose. Boom! Qin Wuiyang and Xiao Yang were provoked by Yi Fei and their fighting spirit and anger exploded. Yi Fei's actions had given them hope. Since this small fry could withstand the thunderbolts and surpass Lu Qianzhong, why couldn't they do the same? Get lost. This is not a place for you to come. This is also not a place for a lowly person like him. I will make him understand this. Lu Qianzhong's face was ashen. As the son of the Divine Lord and a genius of the Divine Prefecture, he was undoubtedly arrogant. Even though he had returned to Qingzhou, he still looked down on the entire Qingzhou and the so-called geniuses of Qingzhou. This was because he was from the Divine Prefecture. Dong. Lu Qianzhong's footsteps suddenly became heavy. He was no longer refining the thunderbolt. Instead, he forcefully withstood the thunderbolts step by step and began to run wildly. He was trying to catch up with Yi Fei and then surpass Yi Fei. Yi Fei's expression was calm. The higher they went up the stairs, the more terrifying the number of thunderbolts they faced. Lu Qianzhong was strong, but no matter how strong he was no match for Renzu, especially now that Lu Qianzhong was panicking. He was no longer refining the thunderbolts, but chasing after Yi Fei. This was because he was resisting the lightning. And how many lightning bolts were there on this flight of stairs? Limitless. Lu Qianzhong wanted to use his limited strength to resist the endless thunderbolt. This was a ridiculous move in itself. However, I can make use of Lu Qianzhong's impulse. A cold light flashed in Yi Fei's eyes. He thought about how this person had used the Nine Palaces' soul-locking technique to steal other people's bloodlines. He thought about how this person had surpassed him and looked down on him and the Earth Realm. Lu Qianzhong, didn't you look down on the people from the Earth Realm? Didn't you call yourself a genius from the Divine Prefecture? Today, I will trample you, the so-called genius from the Divine Prefecture, under my feet. Suddenly, Yi Fei's footsteps stopped as if he couldn't withstand the thunderbolts from the higher flight of stairs. He could only move forward with difficulty while trying to resist the excessive thunderbolt. He can't take it anymore. Humph, a small fry will always be a small fry. Do you think you can defeat me just by running ahead of me? Lu Qianzhong was shocked. Yi Fei's pause was undoubtedly the best opportunity for him to surpass Yi Fei. Although surpassing him now would cause him to suffer more thunderbolts, his pride as the son of a divine lord made him unable to tolerate Yi Fei surpassing him. Even if this was only temporary, Lu Qianzhong still couldn't bear it. He couldn't bear it. He moved. His footsteps continued to move. Suddenly, he reached the same flight of stairs as Yi Fei. Lu Qianzhong's expression was filled with contempt and indifference. When he brushed past Yi Fei, he said coldly, "If you get lost now, I can still let you die a quick death." "Get lost? Let's talk about it after you surpass me." Dong. The heavy footsteps landed again. Just as Lu Qianzhong was about to step onto the higher flight of stairs arrogantly, another foot stepped on it before him. Lu Qianzhong's arrogant face turned pale again. "Yi Fei, I want you to die." Boom! The bloodline in his body was roaring. In order to regain the first place, Lu Qianzhong didn't hesitate to burn his bloodline. He used the power of his bloodline to withstand the endless thunderbolts and strode forward. Yi Fei's face instantly turned ugly. "Lu Qianzhong, you forced me to do this. It seems like I have no choice but to burn my origin energy." Haha, burning his origin energy? Is Yi Fei a fool? Origin energy is the potential of a martial artist. The more he burns his origin energy, the more his lifespan and potential will be lost. Perhaps he is competitive. It's a pity that he chose to compete with Lu Qianzhong. Is he crazy? Suddenly, Bai Lung and the others who were discussing widened their eyes in shock. On the stairs, Yi Fei, who had been overtaken by Lu Qianzhong, suddenly took more than 10 steps and overtook Lu Qianzhong again. How much origin energy did he have to burn to do such a thing? "You are really crazy. In order to surpass me, you are willing to burn your origin energy. However, you still can't surpass me because I am Lu Qianzhong, the son of the divine land. There is a huge gap between me and an ant like you. You and I are from two different worlds." Boom! Lu Qianzhong's bloodline burned again and his footsteps became heavier. He stepped on the stairs step by step and soon overtook Yi Fei again. However, just as Lu Qianzhong thought that he had overtaken Yi Fei's weary face suddenly flashed with determination. The lightning radiance on his body burned even brighter as though he was burning his sovereign's origin energy again. He took a big step forward and overtook Lu Qianzhong again. Lu Qianzhong's eyes suddenly exploded with a fierce light and a cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. "His competitive spirit has been completely stirred up by me. If I persist for a few more steps and force him to burn his origin energy a few more times, I might be able to exhaust him to death on this lightning ancient path without having to do anything." With such an idea in mind, Lu Qianzhong unleashed an even stronger bloodline power and overtook Yi Fei again. Yi Fei's expression changed drastically and he looked even more tired. However, the lightning on his body was burning fiercely. Just like that, Yi Fei and Lu Qianzhong continued to fight under the shocked gazes of the crowd. Lu Qianzhong and Yi Fei started to chase each other on the stairs. Chapter 2151. On the Thunderbolt Ancient Path, every step had a layer of lightning. At the top, two figures were chasing each other and competing with each other. Both of them wanted to be the first to obtain the right to enter Rizu's graveyard. However, Lu Qianzhong obviously had an advantage over Yi Fei. His bloodline was powerful and his defense was terrifying. As the two of them climbed up more steps, more lightning struck them. Lu Qianzhong didn't have time to refine the lightning. He could only rely on his powerful physical strength to fight. His physical strength withstood close to 4,000 lightning bolts as he chased after Yi Fei. This was already Lu Qianzhong's limit. If this continued, even if he was the son of a divine lord, he might be blasted into pieces by even more lightning bolts. However, Lu Qianzhong's face was filled with pride. After this round of competition, not only did he force Yi Fei to burn his origin source a few times, but his combat strength and lifespan were also greatly reduced. He also took back the first position that should have belonged to him. Yi Fei, I have to admit that you are indeed crazy. You can burn your origin source so many times and still not die. However, it's a pity that the first position can only belong to me. This distance is also a gap that an ant like you will never be able to cross. Standing on the steps, Lu Qianzhong was like a high and mighty emperor looking down at the group of beggars. He was filled with dignity and endless contempt. Then, he turned around and didn't bother to look at the group of losers behind him. He started to calm himself down and prepared to refine the shocking nomological laws and lightning bolts around him. It was obvious that Lu Qianzhong had reached his limit after burning his bloodline power for so long. Knowing that he wouldn't be able to exhaust too much of Lu Qianzhong's energy even if he continued, Yi Fei's tired expression suddenly disappeared and he became energetic. At this moment, there were still 100 steps before they reached the Thunderbolt ancient path. Yi Fei didn't hesitate. Just as Lu Qianzhong thought that he had completely suppressed Yi Fei and that victory was in his hands, dong. Yi Fei moved again. Seeing Yi Fei's movement, everyone at the bottom of the stairs looked at Yi Fei in shock. He is crazy, he is really crazy. If he burns his source energy like this, even if he can surpass Lu Qianzhong and get first, he will become a cripple. What a pity for his body. Bai Ling shook his head in pity. This made Qin Wuyang and Xiao Yang shiver. Suddenly, Gao Jun, who was at the back, noticed that something was wrong with Yi Fei. Something's not right. According to Gao Sickle, this demon Lord Yi is best at pretending to be an honest person while secretly tricking people to death. How could he be so impulsive as to continuously burn his own essence? Using such a self-destructive method to surpass him is clearly impossible. Surpassed Lu Qianzhong? Who knows? Perhaps water has entered Yi Mo's head. Does he really think that with his little bit of ability, he can make up for the difference between him and Princess Qianzhong? Dong. At this moment Yi Fei moved. Lightning was rolling on his body. His footsteps became extremely light as he strode forward. Suddenly, in a few breaths, he rushed up the stairs where Lu Qianzhong was. Difference? A chasm? Lu Qianzhong, now I will show you what the real difference is. Boom. Yi Fei's body. The lightning was even more intense, but it wasn't like Lu Qianzhong, who had accumulated any nomological laws. This was because when the lightning landed on Yi Fei's body, it was instantly absorbed and refined by the undying sword soul. In Yi Fei's eyes, the endless lightning on the steps was an endless source of energy. Looks like the power of your bloodline has been exhausted to the limit. I am not interested in continuing to play with you. The genius of Divine Continent is just SOSO. Dong. Yi Fei took another step forward. In front of Lu Qianzhong and the crowd, he stepped onto a higher step. Then, the second step, the third step, the 10th step. Boom. When Yi Fei stepped onto the 10th step, the entire lightning ancient path exploded with dazzling radiance, enveloping Yi Fei's body. On the lightning sacred steel, 2 golden words appeared clearly. First, Yi Fei, at the moment when Lu Qianzhong was at his proudest, completed the lightning ancient path and took the first place. This action was like an invisible slap on Lu Qianzhong's face. Lu Qianzhong's face turned extremely pale and twisted. He was extremely furious and ferocious. Yi Fei, how dare you trick me? Lu Qianzhong was infuriated. His immense anger almost caused this son of a divine lord to suffer from qi deviation. He felt aggrieved because his body was suffering from too much lightning. It was so much that he couldn't even move an inch. Lu Qianzhong could only endure the aggrieved feeling and refine the lightning in his body madly. Refining the lightning. He won. Yi Fei actually defeated Lu Qianzhong. He even tricked Lu Qianzhong. Not only did Lu Qianzhong consume a large amount of bloodline power, but he was also trapped on the steps by the thousands of lightning laws. Bai Leng gasped. No wonder Yi Fei is called a devil. If we are not careful, we will be tricked by him. Lu Qianzhong is in trouble now. His bloodline power has been consumed and he has to endure thousands of divine lightning laws. Xiao Yang's eyes flickered as he thought of something. Qin Huang's eyes lit up and he suddenly laughed wildly. Our chance is here. If Yi Fei can take the first place, why can't I take the second place? Qin Huang, how dare you? Whoever dares to come up will be my enemy. He and Yi Fei are people I must kill. Lu Qianzhong suddenly turned his head and stared at Qin Huang as if he could eat him alive. Qin Huang's expression changed. We, the Western Qin people, are the descendants of the war tribe. We will not be threatened by anyone. Dong. After Yi Fei broke the myth of Lu Qianzhong being invincible, Qin Huang was not so afraid of Lu Qianzhong anymore. In addition, the great temptation of the Rizu inheritance finally made Qin Huang do something shocking. He took advantage of the moment when Lu Qianzhong was refining the lightning laws to take a step forward and overtake him. Then, he went up the higher step. This action was like a resounding slap on Lu Qianzhong's face. Lu Qianzhong's eyes turned red and he looked like an enraged demon god. However, before Lu Qianzhong could do anything, another figure took the opportunity to overtake him and take the third place. It was the crown prince of Yunxue country, Xiao Yang. Slap. Xiao Yang's move was like an invisible slap on Lu Qianzhong's face. Then, he saw Bai Ling, the prince of Tianhe, walk past him coldly and take the fourth place. In the end, Lu Qianzhong, the son of a divine emperor and a genius of divine land, fell from the first place to the last place. Behind him, Guiyun and Gao Jun were eyeing him covetously, ready to rush up and take the fifth place away from Lu Qianzhong. Chapter 21:52. Yi Fei, we won't let you get away with this. Gao Jun and Guiyun shouted angrily. If not for Yi Fei, the two of them would have had a great chance of passing the test of the Thunder Ancient Path. Unfortunately, Yi Fei had first severed Lu Qianzhong's bloodline shackles, causing Lu Qianzhong to lose the opportunity to enter the inheritance hall directly. Lu Qianzhong could only enter the trial hall to obtain a spot. Then, Yi Fei's participation had allowed him to obtain another spot and obtain first place. On the other hand, Gao Jun, the young master of Clear Cloud Pavilion, and Guiyun, the young master of Medicine King Manor, had not obtained anything. They had even been abandoned outside the Thunder Ancient Path. Gao Jun was really angry. Guiyun's face had turned ashen on the spot. Unfortunately, Yi Fei could not feel their anger at all. After passing through the steps of the Thunder Ancient Path, what appeared before him was a long void. There were many huge blooming flowers in the void. These flowers were like lotus flowers that constantly floated in the void. It's actually the void flowers. Yi Fei was shocked. Based on his consciousness, he naturally knew that these lotus flowers were not real. They had been forcibly created by Renzu using the creation technique. He tried to attack the lotus flower closest to him. That lotus flower immediately erupted with a terrifying nomological aura that formed a storm and shot back at Yi Fei. Nomological laws. These lotus flowers are all nomological laws. Yi Fei looked at the sky full of lotus flowers in astonishment. He vaguely felt that this void was somewhat familiar. When he thought about it carefully, he realized that this void was exactly the same as the nomological void he had sensed. It was just that the nomological void was filled with endless nomological light. However, the void created by the lightning ancestor was filled with endless nomological lotus flowers. Then Yi Fei couldn't help but form a huge association in his heart. Martialists can comprehend endless nomological laws when they enter the nomological void. In that case, if I enter this void lotus, will I also be able to comprehend nomological laws? It had to be known that in order to completely master the 9 revolutions divine star art, he had to comprehend 9 second-level nomological laws. After confirming that there was no danger, Yi Fei immediately rushed towards the nearest lotus flower. As the distance between them closed, the undying sword soul within his body began to tremble violently. That was excitement and desire. This was a signal that the undying sword soul had sensed that there was energy that could be absorbed. Yi Fei was ecstatic. Needless to say, the flower of laws in this void should be the reward for clearing the ancient thunder path. Before Lu Qianzhong reaches me, I have to refine these lotuses as soon as possible. Undying sword soul, absorb them. Boom. Yi Fei's body once again turned into a terrifying, inextinguishable vortex. He rushed to the lotus platforms of the law flowers and began to frantically absorb them. As the law flowers were refined and absorbed by Yi Fei, the law aura on Yi Fei's body became increasingly rich. Xiao Chao and the dragon turtle were also startled. They seemed to be very interested in these law flowers. While no one was looking, Xiao Chao rode out on the dragon turtle and suddenly waved his hand. At the same time, he threw out a vine whip and dragged back a law flower that hadn't been absorbed by the undying sword soul. Xiao Chao only took a small bite, but many hearts started to appear in his eyes. Xiao Chao was delighted to discover that not only were these law flowers edible, but they also seemed to be very delicious. This time, the dragon turtle didn't fight with little grass. Seeing that these flowers of law were indeed edible, 2 large black scoops suddenly appeared on the dragon turtle's claws. Just like scooping water from a river, the 2 scoops were filled with the flowers of law that were attracted by the undying sword soul. The dragon turtle didn't stand on ceremony. It opened its mouth, and more than a dozen law flowers entered it. It was simply like a cow chewing on peonies. Yi Fei and Xiao Chao's faces were very dark. However, these law flowers weren't theirs, so it didn't matter how much the dragon turtle ate. Moreover, when he thought of Lu Qianzhong and the others who would rush over soon, Yi Fei couldn't wait for the dragon turtle to eat more. After all, the more the dragon turtle and Xiao Chao ate, the more Lu Qianzhong, who would come later, would be able to eat. The amount of law flowers that Lu Qianzhong and the others would obtain would be even less. Thinking of this, Yi Fei wasn't in a hurry to refine these law flowers. He only used the undying sword soul to attract these law flowers one by one. Then, he stored all of them into his spatial belt. The dragon turtle also quickly closed its 2 black scoops and turned them into a large black jar again. Then, the dragon turtle brought all the law flowers that Yi Fei had attracted back into Yi Fei's beast mark space. Soon, Yi Fei's spatial belt and beast mark space were filled with a large amount of law flowers. Oh my God, there are too many flowers of the laws in the void. Even though I have captured a few hundred of them, the surrounding flowers of the laws are still endless. Unfortunately, these flowers of the laws only contain first-level laws. They might be useful to the dragon turtle and Xiao Chao, but they are not very useful to me. Even so, Yi Fei continued to use the undying sword soul to form a destructive whirlpool to absorb and refine the law flowers that approached him. Roar! Suddenly, the dragon turtle's miserable cry came from not far away. It was the dragon turtle's black mouth that had accidentally gnawed on a very large law flower. The other law flowers were only the size of a washbasin, but the one that the dragon turtle was gnawing on was the size of a round table. It wasn't known where the dragon turtle found it, but it habitually stretched its black mouth over. However, that law flower turned from a lotus to a hedgehog filled with lightning needles at the crucial moment. When the dragon turtle bit down, the result was as one could imagine. Xiao Chao was completely stunned, and the dragon turtle's black mouth was swollen from being pricked. However, it still didn't give up. It stretched out its black dipper and slammed it towards the flower of law. It wanted to flatten the flower and take it back to slowly refine it to take revenge for pricking its mouth. However, just as the dragon turtle's black ladle was swung out, the flower of precepts, which sensed danger, suddenly softened its lightning needles. In an instant, it turned into a ferocious lightning lion. It opened its mouth and spat out a terrifying lightning beam. The dragon turtle and its ladle were sent tumbling in the void. Yi Fei felt even more bitter. This stupid turtle, it ate the mystical stones for nothing. Last time, it couldn't beat the grass-eating deer, and this time, it can't even beat the law flower that only has its instincts. It seems that there's a need to reduce its meals. Yi Fei's words drifted into the dragon turtle's ears. The dragon turtle, who had been rolling around in the void and hoping that Yi Fei would attack as soon as possible, turned ashen on the spot. His curled-up body suddenly stretched out at this moment. Roar! Chapter 2153. In a trance, Yi Fei felt as if he had returned to the outer northern region, when he first met the dragon turtle. At that time, the dragon turtle was also as domineering as it was now, chasing after a flood dragon until it had nowhere to run. Unfortunately, the dragon turtle was domineering and powerful. Unfortunately, the flower of the precepts was even more domineering and powerful than the dragon turtle. Seeing the dragon turtle grow bigger, the flower of the precepts also rapidly grew bigger. From a lion, it turned into a terrifying thunder bear, slapping out a huge palm like thunder. The thunder-raging bear smacked the dragon turtle to the ground with a single slap. Xiao Qiao hurriedly covered his eyes. He couldn't bear to see the dragon turtle get beaten up. Yi Fei also looked at the thunder-raging bear in shock. After the dragon turtle grew bigger, its sturdy body and super-strong defense made it difficult for even a ruler to break through. However, the thunder-raging bear smacked the huge dragon turtle to the ground with a single slap. This was no longer the power of a ruler. It was clearly the power of the Lord of Heaven. Not good. Blackie, quickly shrink and dodge. Yi Fei hurriedly reminded Blackie. However, he soon realized that his reminder was unnecessary. Seeing that it couldn't defeat the thunder-raging bear, the dragon turtle shrank back into its shell again. As its body shrank, it rolled towards Yi Fei like a ball. Roar! The thunder-raging bear was clearly enraged by the dragon turtle. It let out a furious roar and slapped the dragon turtle with its huge bear paw again. However, it failed to catch the dragon turtle. At the critical moment, a red and swollen black mouth suddenly extended from the dragon turtle's shrunken shell and spat out a poisonous gust of wind. The poisonous gust of wind formed a rebounding force that quickly sent the dragon turtle flying like a rubber ball. Such a strange method of escaping caused the lightning-violent bear to be stunned on the spot. It didn't know how to react. Kill. Yi Fei wouldn't give the thunder-violent bear a chance to react. Sensing that it didn't possess the power of a ruler, but the power of the Lord of Heaven, Yi Fei charged forward with his dark steel heavy sword. Seeing Yi Fei rush over, the thunder-violent bear was clearly terrified. It let out a thunderous roar and its bare body disappeared. But at this moment it turned into a huge thunderbird. Its speed was even faster than lightning. With a whoosh, the thunderbird disappeared before Yi Fei's eyes. With another swoosh, it instantly appeared behind Yi Fei. Its sharp claws, accompanied by a thunderous roar, clawed at the back of Yi Fei's head and back. Clang! At this critical moment, Yi Fei didn't turn around. Instead, he turned his heavy sword from front to back and carried it on his back like a shield. Following that, there was a roar from the intense friction between the claws and the heavy sword, producing intense sparks. At the same time, a terrifying force blasted towards Yi Fei's body like an avalanche. Yi Fei also felt that the Thunderbird possessed a power comparable to the Lord of Heaven. Clearly, the dragon turtle hadn't discovered ordinary flowers of the nomological laws. It was very likely that it was the flower king of the flowers of the nomological laws. This Rizu is really sinister. Flowers of the void seem to be a reward for us passing the ancient lightning path, but there's actually a fatal danger hidden in the dark. It's waiting for us to be at our most relaxed to launch a fatal attack. This time, it was fortunate that the dragon turtle was greedy and quickly discovered the hidden flower king. Otherwise, Yi Fei couldn't imagine the terrifying consequences of being ambushed by a flower king comparable to the Lord of Heaven while he was refining those ordinary flowers of the nomological laws at ease. However, Yi Fei didn't retreat. After all, this was just a flower king. Even if it had the power of the Lord of Heaven, it was completely relying on its instincts to attack. It didn't have the mystical abilities of the Lord of Heaven. This allowed Yi Fei to see hope for victory. After all, his power didn't lose to the Lord of Heaven. He also had the Darksteel heavy sword in his hand, which was a level 5 divine weapon. Boom! At the same time that the heavy sword blocked the Thunderbird's claws, Yi Fei's body had already flipped over like a python. He quickly turned around, took out the indestructible sword token, and stabbed it towards the Thunderbird's body. The Thunderbird immediately let out a terrified shriek. Even if it was only instinctively, the aura of the indestructible sword's soul made the Thunderbird feel immense fear. Without waiting for Yi Fei's hand to grab it, the Thunderbird suddenly flapped its wings, wanting to soar higher into the sky to avoid the terrifying power of the indestructible sword's soul. Roar! However, at this moment the sky suddenly darkened. The Thunderbird flapped its wings and soared into the sky. At some point in time, a huge creature had appeared in the sky. It was the dragon turtle. When it saw Yi Fei suppressing the Thunderbird, it became domineering again. It even enlarged in advance and blocked the sky like a meteor. The dragon turtle sat down hard on the Thunderbird. Caught off guard, the Thunderbird let out a miserable shriek. It was pressed down from the sky by the dragon turtle. Even the Thunderbird's neck was squashed like a noodle, drooping on its chest. After that, the Thunderbird let out a furious roar from within its body. The Thunderbird, whose neck was broken, decisively transformed into the form of the Flower King again. However, there were lightning needles that were thicker than spears growing on the edges of the flower. When it jumped up, it fiercely shot towards Yi Fei and the dragon turtle. Golden body of laws! Boom! Yi Fei didn't care about anything else. In order to prevent the dragon turtle's head from being pierced, he had to activate his strongest defense. He directly used his golden body of laws to block the lightning needles that filled the sky. At the same time, he rushed towards the Flower King's lotus seat. The indestructible sword token also turned into a black golden divine sword and stabbed into the Flower King's lotus seat. Inside the Flower King's lotus seat, roar! Vaguely, Yi Fei seemed to hear a terrifying roar coming from within the lotus seat. Then, under the crazy absorption of the indestructible sword spirit, the Flower King, which had the power of the Lord of Heaven, gradually stopped struggling. Then, it turned into a strange divine light and completely enveloped Yi Fei. Within the divine light, Yi Fei suddenly felt a powerful ray of light of laws. It kept merging into his body and then into his celestial palace fate wheel. Buzz! Without any warning, Yi Fei's fate wheel started to spin wildly. At the same time, a strange lightning halo appeared on the fate wheel. It turned his 9 fate wheel into a 10 fate wheel. Yi Fei was shocked. What's going on? The limit of the Celestial Palace for martial arts is 8 and the limit of the Fate Wheel is 9. But my Fate Wheel has become 10. Is this the effect of the Flower King of Laws? It can actually improve my Fate Wheel. Boom. This thought made Yi Fei excited. One had to know that the more second-level laws a sovereign fused, the stronger that sovereign's combat strength would be. At this moment, if someone could fuse 9 types of laws into 10 types of laws at the same cultivation level, that person would become an invincible existence in the same cultivation level. I see. The Flower King of Laws is the real reward for passing the ancient road of lightning. However, without a certain level of strength, it's impossible to capture the Flower King, let alone refine it. Chapter 2154. Flower King, we have to find all the Flower Kings here before Lu Qianzhong comes in. Yi Fei's eyes were red with envy. The value of the Flower Kings was enough to drive anyone crazy. Yi Fei was no exception. When the dragon turtle found the Flower King, Yi Fei immediately released his spiritual consciousness to sense the void. He was not the only one who found the Flower King's value. Xiao Qiao and the dragon turtle also began to look around to find the hidden Flower King. There were traces of the Flower King. Squeak, squeak. Suddenly, Xiao Qiao's spiritual eye of heaven and earth found something. Even though the Flower King hid very well and was almost the same as the flowers of law around it, the fluctuation of the Flower King's law was obviously different from the normal fluctuation of the law. Xiao Qiao, who had received the inheritance of the primordial immortal tribe, had a stronger sense of perception. Almost at the same time when Xiao Qiao found the Flower King screamed and suddenly turned into a huge thunder dragon. It opened its mouth and spat out thunderbolts, trying to kill Xiao Qiao who found it. However, before the thunder dragon could reach them, Yi Fei had already stepped into the void. His heavy dark iron sword, with the power to break the void, instantly engaged in a fierce battle with the thunder dragon. In the end, there was a muffled explosion. The thunder dragon could not withstand the double attack of the dark iron sword and Yi Fei's divine power. After more than a dozen attacks, the thunder dragon was cut in half from the middle. Once again, the thunder dragon turned into horrifying power of the law and surged into Yi Fei's body. Yi Fei also saw clearly that as the power of the law surged into his fate wheel, there were miraculous changes. There were originally 10 fate wheels, but now there were 11 fate wheels. The energy from the normal flowers of law that he had refined was not wasted. Under the stimulation of the Flower King's law, all of it was suddenly integrated into Yi Fei's fate wheel and a new law was formed. Furthermore, this law was not something that Yi Fei had taken the initiative to enhance. Instead, it was the power of the Flower of Laws. It was a passive fusion based on the many law attributes that Yi Fei had comprehended. For example, the first Flower King that Yi Fei killed was astonishingly fast and could turn into a thunderbird. Yi Fei happened to have mastered the Rosefinch Divine Sword. Therefore, the second-level law awakened in his fate wheel was the rare Rosefinch Law. The second Flower King that Yi Fei had killed was adept at concealment and had the ability to transform into a dragon. After being refined, it had actually fused with the Azure Dragon Divine Sword, forming the second level of the Azure Dragon Law. Coupled with the laws of slaughter and the laws of lightning that Yi Fei had comprehended earlier, he'd grasped 4 second-level laws. This had officially broken through the limits of the laws that an early-stage ruler could accommodate. Yi Fei heard a huge roar in his body. After refining the 2 Flower Kings of Law, he had instantly broken through to the mid-stage ruler realm. This huge benefit also confirmed Yi Fei's judgment on the Thunder Ancient Path. The first person to pass through the Thunder Ancient Path and step into this void would not only seize the initiative, but would also reap greater rewards before the others entered. What I have to do now is to do my best to capture all the Flower Kings here before Lu Qianzhong and the others. Xiao Qiao continued to sense. Boom. Yi Fei no longer absorbed the normal flowers of law. Instead, he carried the black iron heavy sword and went around to search for traces of more Flower Kings. Xiao Qiao's spiritual eye of heaven and earth played a huge role at this moment. Although the Flower Kings of Law were very difficult to find, they could not escape Xiao Qiao's senses. Very quickly, another hidden Flower King was found by Xiao Qiao. Moo! The Flower King flew into a rage out of humiliation. Before Yi Fei could attack, he had already turned into a huge thunder divine bull and roared at the sky. Following his roar, 2 huge echoes came from the void. Then, a huge scorpion with lightning and thunder roared from the void even further away. Another ferocious thunder giant walked out of the void. His huge palms were covered in lightning as he slapped at Yi Fei. Unfortunately, at this moment, lightning started to flicker at the entrance of the void. Gradually, a blurry figure appeared. Yi Fei's face instantly turned ugly. Oh no, these Flower Kings seem to have been cornered by me. They actually joined forces to attack me. It would be even worse if Lu Qianzhong were to come in. After all, he had snatched first place from Lu Qianzhong in front of everyone. This was a huge slap to Lu Qianzhong's face. Given Lu Qianzhong's hatred for him, he would definitely fight him to the death. At this moment, it was very dangerous to leave Xiao Chao and the dragon turtle outside. Yi Fei quickly put Xiao Chao and the dragon turtle back into the beast mark space. Boom! At this moment, the Thunder Divine Bull, the Thunder Giant and the Lightning Scorpion had already swooped down. The attacks of the three Flower Kings landed on Yi Fei's body. The attacks caused Yi Fei's golden body to flicker violently. His body uncontrollably rolled a few rounds in the void. This scene was witnessed by Qin Wuyang, who had successfully rushed in. Qin Wuyang couldn't help but laugh coldly. Yi Fei, to think that you would have such a day. Tell me, should I take advantage of your weakness and kill you? Seeing Yi Fei being surrounded by three thunder beasts, Qin Wuyang couldn't help but have some bad thoughts. When he saw that it wasn't Lu Qianzhong but Qin Wuyang who had come in, Yi Fei heaved a sigh of relief. He didn't care about Qin Wuyang's threat and even retreated to Qin Wuyang's side. Qin Wuyang, who was about to attack, was shocked. Demon Yi, what are you up to now? I'm not as stupid as Lu Qianzhong. How can I be fooled by you? Shu. In response to Qin Wuyang's question, Yi Fei pressed a finger to his lips and anxiously sent a voice transmission. Brother Qin, now is not the time for internal strife. Do you see those lightning beasts? They're all Law Flower Kings. Just one flower can upgrade your 9 lives heavenly wheel to 10 lives heavenly wheel. What? 10 lives wheel? That's the ultimate fate wheel that only the geniuses of the Divine Prefecture can have. As a prince, Qin Wuyang obviously knew more than Yi Fei. When he heard Yi Fei's words and saw the flowers of the rule in the void, he immediately believed Yi Fei's words. He suddenly didn't know whether to continue attacking Yi Fei or to seize the opportunity to seize the flowers of the rule. While Qin Wuyang was hesitating, another thunder beast rushed in from the void entrance. Then, the crown prince of the Yunxua nation, Xiao Yang, appeared. When Xiao Yang saw that Qin Wuyang didn't attack Yi Fei, and that the two were still standing together, Xiao Yang was stunned. Qin Wuyang, what are you, Shu? Chapter 2155. Yi Fei immediately sent a voice transmission to Xiao Yang and Qin Wuyang. Let's not talk about this for now. I'm not afraid to tell you that there are countless flowers of law in this void, but only 3 flower kings. If you want the 10 lives wheel, let's work together and refine these flower kings. Otherwise, wait for the other 2 to come in. These 3 flowers of law will not be easy to split. Swoosh. Xiao Yang and Qin Wuyang's expressions changed at the same time. Yi Fei's threat was undoubtedly successful, even though the 2 of them didn't believe that there were only 3 flower kings in this void. However, it was a fact that only the top 5 could enter this void. This also meant that the number of flower kings in this void wouldn't exceed 5. As the first to enter, Yi Fei would undoubtedly have a huge advantage in capturing the flower kings. Xiao Yang looked at Yi Fei suspiciously and said, Brother Yi, there should be 5 flower kings here, right? That's right, there are 5. But so what? I can't spit them out even if I refine them. If you don't seize the opportunity to refine the remaining 3, it won't be easy to split them. Yi Fei's words were harsh but realistic. After all, there were only 3 flower kings left and 5 people. Even if Yi Fei withdrew, the remaining 3 flower kings wouldn't be enough for the 4 of them. This was also why Yi Fei wanted to keep quiet. If he didn't and Bai Lung and Lu Qianzhong rushed over, these flower kings would have nothing to do with him. As the crown prince of the Snow Cloud Nation, Xiao Yang obviously wasn't stupid. He immediately understood Yi Fei's plan and quickly withdrew his hostility towards Yi Fei. Brother Yi is right. Now is not the time for internal strife. Let's seize the time and capture the 3-headed flower kings. Qin Wuyang, what do you think? Kill. Qin Wuyang answered with his actions. As soon as the three of them finished their discussion, he rushed towards the Thunder Divine Bull. Ha ha! That scorpion is mine. Xiao Yang also sneered. In front of the huge Thunder Giant and the petite Lightning Scorpion, he clearly felt that the Lightning Scorpion was easier to bully. Yi Fei also shrugged helplessly. He understood that even though the two of them had agreed to work together, they had deliberately thrown the most difficult Thunder Giant to him. But it doesn't matter. Anyway, I'm best at strength. Who cares if it's a Thunder Giant? I'll kill it first. Boom. Yi Fei lifted his dark iron heavy sword and charged towards the massive Thunder Giant. At the same time, Xiao Yang and Qin Wuyang also engaged in battle with the other two Law Flower Monarchs. The two of them even used their full strength in this battle. Obviously, they were smart enough to know that 3 Flower Kings were not enough for 5 people. If Lu Qianzhong came up and found the Flower Kings, they would have nothing to do with it. Hence, before Lu Qianzhong came up, they had to hiss like Yi Fei did. Don't make a big deal out of it, just refine it silently. Let's talk about it after killing the 3-headed Flower King. You have no intelligence, only instincts. Shatter. Battle King's fist. Qin Wuyang's hair fluttered in the wind. He was like an undefeatable Battle King as he punched towards the Thunder God Bull. At the same time, a pair of steel gloves appeared on his fists. Not only did they emit the light of a rank 5 god material, but there were also 3 clear divine runes on them. This allowed his attack to reach the level of the Lord of Heaven. Level. No matter how the Thunder God Bull struggled, it couldn't escape its fate of being killed. Heaven and earth freeze. Xiao Yang's cold aura was like frost, freezing the heaven and earth. At the same time, a rank 5 frost staff appeared in his hand. This staff seemed to be able to increase his cold aura, allowing Xiao Yang's attack to break through the level of the Lord of Heaven. In an instant, the Thunder Scorpion was completely frozen. Seeing the attacks of these two, Yi Fei's expression suddenly became a lot more serious. He originally wanted to use these two people to delay the other 2 Flower Kings and buy time for him to kill the Thunder Giant. Now it seemed that, if he didn't act quickly, not only would he not be able to buy time for Xiao Yang and Qin Wuyang to kill the Thunder Giant, but now it seemed that, if he didn't act quickly, not only would he not be able to buy time for Xiao Yang and Qin Wuyang to kill them. With those 2 Flower Kings, they might come to fight for his Flower King. Clearly, Xiao Yang and Qin Wuyang didn't have any good intentions when they deliberately gave the biggest Thunder Giant to Yi Fei. Yi Fei shook his head and didn't say anything. He just activated his golden body of laws to the limit. Then, he raised his dark steel heavy sword and charged towards the Thunder Giant. Roar! The giant roared, and 2 terrifying bolts of destructive lightning shot out from its eyes. This was no longer an instinctive attack. It was clearly a very powerful divine ability of the Lord of Heaven. Yi Fei was very shocked. The other Flower Kings don't have divine abilities. How can this Flower King use divine abilities? Those who have been abandoned by the heavens are indeed very unlucky. If he had known this would happen, he would have attacked first. At least he would have been able to get an easy kill. However, if he had done that, it would have been very difficult for him to drag Xiao Yang and Qin Wuyang down with him. Fortunately, although this Thunder Giant is powerful, the Undying Sword Soul is the biggest nemesis of these life forms formed by energy. Rumble! Yi Fei waved his dark steel heavy sword and slashed twice, shattering the lightning bolts in the Thunder Giant's eyes. Then, his entire body burned with a blazing purple-gold flame, ignoring the Lord of Heaven's divine ability that the Thunder Giant was crazily attacking. 1 palm, 2 palms, 3 palms, 10 palms, boom, crack. Just as Yi Fei used his golden body of laws to withstand the Thunder Giant's 10 palms, he finally reached the Thunder Giant's head. His dark steel heavy sword suddenly emitted a blinding purple-gold light, and the 3 divine inscriptions on the sword lit up one after another. After the spiritual attachment, the dark steel heavy sword became even more terrifying. With just one slash, Yi Fei smashed half of the Thunder Giant's head into pieces. However, the Thunder Giant did not fall. It continued to attack Yi Fei with its divine ability. During this time, Yi Fei could clearly feel the light of his golden body of laws dimming rapidly. After 20 palms, countless cracks appeared on his golden body. It seemed that, if the Thunder Giant's next palm landed, Yi Fei would be smashed into meat paste. However, Yi Fei still had no intention of retreating. Instead, he continued to attack crazily with his sword. Slash after slash, he smashed the Thunder Giant's head and then its body. Finally, just as the Thunder Giant's final palm landed, its entire body could no longer withstand the damage from the dark steel heavy sword. It shattered into pieces and turned into lightning bolts that filled the sky. Crack! At this moment, Yi Fei's golden body of laws also completely collapsed. It was really a close call. At the same time, Xiao Yang and Qin Wuyang on the other side also relied on their divine weapons to completely kill the Thunder Bull and Lightning Scorpion. Just as they tacitly agreed to join forces again to attack Yi Fei's Thunder Giant. They were shocked to see that the Thunder Giant, which was the most difficult to deal with, was actually smashed to pieces by Yi Fei's dark steel heavy sword. Chapter 2156. Boom! As the Thunder Giant was destroyed by the heavy sword, the body of the Maxim Flower King appeared. A strange thunder key floated into Yi Fei's hand. At the same time, a mysterious message appeared in his mind. The Thunder Key. Activate it, and you can open the Thunder Ancestral Palace and receive my inheritance. It turned out that the Lightning Ancestor had actually hidden his inheritance within the body of the strongest Law Flower King. As long as anyone could kill this Law Flower King, they would be able to obtain this Lightning Key and open the final tomb of the Lightning Ancestor. When Xiao Yang realized this, he gave up on the idea of joining hands with Yi Fei. After all, they only joined hands with Yi Fei to kill the Flower King as soon as possible so that they could find a way to upgrade their fate wheel. Now that the Flower King had been killed, he had turned back into a lotus and was in their hands. Of course, they would not be polite to Yi Fei. Furthermore, anyone with a discerning eye could tell that the Lightning Key was closely related to the Lightning Ancestor's inheritance. Great Ice Seal. Without a sound, Xiao Yang, the Crown Prince of the Snow Cloud Nation, made his move. He raised his wand and released an endless amount of ice, freezing the void and forming countless huge icebergs. Battle King Fist. Yi Fei, hand over the Flower King's body and the Golden Key, and you may live. Qin Wuyang's expression was cold. He strode forward and his fists were like war hammers, shattering the space. They were filled with terrifying physical strength. The West Qin royal family's strongest ability was their physical theurgy. Such a theurgy had forced Flying Snake, who had almost become a Dao Lord, to flee and hide in the Baiyun Nation. At this moment, Xiao Yang suddenly made a move and restricted Yi Fei's movements. Qin Wuyang did not hesitate to use his strongest physical theurgy to attack Yi Fei. He did not want to kill Yi Fei, but as long as he could snatch the Thunder Key from Yi Fei, they would achieve their goal. Brother Qin, Brother Xiao, you royals really change sides faster than flipping the pages of a book. If there are benefits, you cooperate. If there are no benefits, you immediately kill your allies. Yi Fei shook his head secretly. He suddenly felt a little disappointed in these two Qingzhou geniuses. He had originally planned to turn enemies into friends with these two and resist the pressure from Lu Qianzhong and Bai Lung together. For this reason, he had even given up the two Flower Kings. Who would have known that the two of them did not appreciate his kindness at all? Boom! Qin Wuyang's Battle King Fist struck Yi Fei's face. Xiao Yang also increased the temperature of the void, causing it to become even more frozen. Yi Fei's body was covered in a thick layer of ice. However, the ice was soon covered in a blazing purple-golden flame. Level 2 Vermilion Bird's Law. The vermilion bird was of the fire attribute. When Yi Fei activated this nomological law, his golden body of laws immediately turned from lightning to blazing flames. Under the blazing flames, the surrounding glaciers were engulfed in white smoke. At this moment, Yi Fei walked out of the white smoke. He held the dark steel heavy sword tightly with both hands and smashed it forward with all his might. There was a loud boom as the dark steel heavy sword collided with Qin Wuyang's Battle King fist. Yi Fei's body did not move at all. He was like a flaming giant that was filled with intense pressure. However, Qin Wuyang felt a majestic power surge into his fist. His body was out of his control and he was sent flying by Yi Fei. Divine power. Your physical strength is actually comparable to the Lord of Heaven. Qin Wuyang was extremely shocked. He could only reach the Lord of Heaven's level by activating his physical mystique. However, Yi Fei was actually able to reach the Lord of Heaven's level just by relying on his divine power? This scene was too terrifying. Xiao Yang and Qin Wuyang's expressions changed. Originally, they had not taken Yi Fei seriously. Even if Yi Fei had surpassed Lu Qianzhong on the lightning ancient path, it was not because of Yi Fei's own strength. It was very likely that he had used some treasure that could absorb lightning. Now that the two of them had personally attacked Yi Fei, they were shocked to discover how terrifying Yi Fei's combat strength was. His physical strength was comparable to the Lord of Heaven's, and he had mastered the powerful second-level nomological law after refining the flower of laws. In a daze, they actually felt as though they were facing Lu Qianzhong and could not defeat him. Boom! While Yi Fei was continuously repelling Xiao Yang and Qin Wuyang's attacks, two thunderous figures appeared at the entrance of the void. Yi Fei's expression changed instantly. Xiao Yang and Qin Wuyang's solemn expressions suddenly turned into ecstasy. They stopped fighting Yi Fei and retreated at the same time. Yi Fei, you are indeed very strong. However, if you want to obtain Rizu's inheritance, not only do you have to ask us, but you also have to ask Lu Qianzhong. Lu Qianzhong, the key to opening Rizu's tomb is in Yi Fei's hands. Xiao Yang roared at the two thunderous figures. These two figures were none other than Bai Lung and Lu Qianzhong, who had arrived last. Especially Lu Qianzhong. As the son of the Divine Lord and a genius of the Divine Continent, he should have left these Qingzhou country bumpkins far behind and obtained first place. However, because of Yi Fei's plot, he, the son of the Divine Lord, actually obtained the last place in shame. Lu Qianzhong couldn't tolerate this. It doesn't matter whether he obtained the key or not. Since he dared to plot against me on the Thunder Ancient Path, he is a dead man. Yi Fei, die. Boom! A terrifying lightning spear suddenly appeared amidst the thunderous sky. That was Lu Qianzhong's natural mystique, the lightning spear. It transformed into lightning and instantly appeared in front of Yi Fei. Then, it pierced towards Yi Fei's body. Yi Fei's expression froze. However, this time, he didn't retreat. Instead, he faced Lu Qianzhong's terrifying spear head-on. Clang! The black iron heavy sword whizzed forward and actually smashed the lightning spear radiance into countless sparks. Lu Qianzhong, after losing the halo of the Divine Lord's Son, you are just SOSO. The reason why ants are ants is not only because your status is low and your lives are as cheap as a dog's, but also because your knowledge is as shallow as that of the earth spirit mouse in the cave. Do you think my divine ability is so simple? Lightning, explode for me. Boom, boom, boom. The lightning that had turned into countless sparks suddenly transformed into a terrifying net of lightning that instantly enveloped Yi Fei. Then, every tiny spark seemed to contain an astonishing amount of energy as it began to violently explode one after another. Chapter 2157. Boundless purplish gold lightning twined around Yi Fei's body. At this moment, Yi Fei released the law of lightning and greatly reduced the damage caused by the lightning. Underground worm, die. Lu Qianzhong's divine spear released an even more intense lightning radiance. He had also activated his own law of lightning. This was a variant of the law of lightning. Not only did it have the power of lightning, but it also had the speed of lightning. Everyone saw a flash of lightning and Lu Qianzhong reorganized himself. He held his spear horizontally and made a standard assassination pose as he charged towards Yi Fei. Get lost! Amidst the lightning, Yi Fei raised the dark iron heavy sword in his hand again and clashed with Lu Qianzhong's long spear. At this moment, Lu Qianzhong's eyes suddenly flashed with a terrifying radiance. He roared and released the law of lightning and his law of lightning at the same time. He also released the other 3 laws. When the 4 laws of lightning were stacked together, Lu Qianzhong's divine spear was burning with a blazing radiance. The radiance was so dazzling that it could pierce through the void and even the body of a Lord of Heaven realm martial artist. Then, facing the terrifying radiance of the divine spear, Yi Fei's body emitted boundless killing aura and blazing fire aura. Then, a massive azure dragon's aura erupted from his body. Ant? If someone with 4 laws of lightning is an ant, then what are you? Yi Fei shouted coldly. Lu Qianzhong's face instantly turned red. He had never expected that the small fry that he had looked down upon on the lightning ancient path would be able to raise his strength to such a level after entering the void for a short while. Such a terrifying level. Lu Qianzhong was enraged and his body emitted a terrifying killing intent. When the divine spear and Yi Fei clashed, Lu Qianzhong suddenly roared. His bloodline was ignited again, forming an even more terrifying and ferocious aura that pierced forward rapidly. Bam! Wherever the divine spear passed, a huge crack was formed in the void and a deep ravine was formed. Lu Qianzhong's face was filled with arrogance again. He was like a high and mighty emperor looking down at a beggar on the ground. He sneered and said, "Do you see that? This is true power. This is a power that even you can't possess. What right do you have to compete with me? What do you have to compete with me?" Kill. The terrifying divine spear radiance appeared again. The power contained within it made by Leng, Xiaoyang, and Qin Wuyang change their expressions. They were filled with uneasiness and fear. Because the current Lu Qianzhong was too powerful and was too terrifying. Even though they were the top geniuses in Qingzhou, they were still far behind Lu Qianzhong, who was from divine land and was the son of a divine emperor. Looks is by is he is was by. Qin Wuyang's expression was solemn. Suddenly, he widened his eyes in shock. Yi Fei did not choose to retreat when facing Lu Qianzhong's bloodline ignition and the deadly divine spear that was superimposed with 4 level 2 rules of order. Although his attacking power was not as strong as Lu Qianzhong's, his defensive power, his path of despair, and his golden body of the rules would not lose to any genius from the divine prefecture. Yi Fei superimposed his level 4 rules of order on his golden body of the rules of order. With the enhancement of the 4 rules of order, his golden body of the rules of order became stronger. In a trance, Yi Fei seemed to have become a war demon from the primordial age. His golden body was invincible and he had immense strength. Roar. He suddenly let out a deep roar. While using his golden body to block Lu Qianzhong's lightning spear radiance, his blood was boiling. His fighting spirit was burning fiercely like a raging fire. Lu Qianzhong, so what if you're the son of the divine prefecture? So what if you're a genius from the divine prefecture? Your nobility cannot block my light. Your strength cannot block my path. Boom. Boom. The sword was like a galaxy that lit up the entire void. Yi Fei held the heavy sword tightly with both hands. His entire body was spinning crazily like a windmill. This was the dance of death, and also the dance of the heavy sword. As Yi Fei spun, the gravity of the dark iron heavy sword became even heavier and more terrifying. Every time Yi Fei danced, a terrifying circular crack would appear in the void around him. Lu Qianzhong's gaze became much more solemn. However, he soon became disdainful. Is there any meaning in the struggle of an ant before death? If you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Then, I'll kill the most important woman to you with my own hands. Kill. Shattering star strike. Bam! Lu Qianzhong's divine spear became even more terrifying. As he released his bloodline and nomological power, he also activated 3 sacred inscriptions on the divine spear. As the son of the Divine Lord, he possessed a level 6 divine spear. Even though Lu Qianzhong could only activate 3 sacred inscriptions, the explosive power instantly shattered Yi Fei's golden body and pierced through Yi Fei's body. However, Yi Fei didn't seem to feel the excruciating pain of the divine spear piercing through his body. His heavy sword was still spinning. This was the real sword of death, and also the sword of death. Almost at the same time when Lu Qianzhong's divine spear pierced through Yi Fei's body, the dark iron heavy sword also smashed into Lu Qianzhong's shoulder with the accumulated divine power. There was a loud cracking sound. Lu Qianzhong's shoulder bone had already been smashed into pieces by the heavy sword. The excruciating pain made the son of the Divine Lord let out a miserable shriek. His body was like a kite with a broken string as he rolled and retreated into the void far away. However, as Lu Qianzhong was retreating, a sinister look flashed in his eyes. A ferocious look flashed across his face. Explode. Boom. The lightning that had pierced through Yi Fei's body suddenly exploded in Yi Fei's body. A bowl-sized bloody hole appeared in Yi Fei's chest. Blood flowed out like a waterfall. The divine spear that had pierced through Yi Fei's body wasn't willing to let go of Yi Fei. It whistled through the air and actually wanted to pierce through the bloody hole created by Yi Fei's explosion. Go. The excruciating pain made Yi Fei feel dizzy for a moment. However, when he thought about Lu Qianzhong's actions, he was suddenly filled with rage and murderous intent. Lu Qianzhong, I don't care what you do to me. However, if you attack the people around me, that will be unforgivable. If you dare to hurt her, I will dare to take your life. Poof! Yi Fei pulled out the bloody divine spear from his wound. Then, it turned into lightning and was thrown by Yi Fei using his divine power. With a loud bang, it pierced through Lu Qianzhong's body. Lu Qianzhong was actually pierced through by his own divine spear. Xiao Yang was extremely shocked. Chapter 2158. While Yi Fei and Lu Qianzhong were both injured, Bai Leng's eyes flashed with murderous intent. Yi Fei's terrifying combat strength was a huge threat to Bai Leng. Based on the blood feud between the Sky River royal family and Yi Fei, Bai Leng would definitely not let go of this opportunity to kill Yi Fei. The sharp ghost claw suddenly appeared in front of Yi Fei and directly dug at the bloody hole in Yi Fei's body. At the same time, an intense yin qi began to draw in the blood that had splashed out of Yi Fei's body. Bai Leng, how dare you? Lu Qianzhong suddenly roared in anger. I have 3 grudges with this demon Yi. First, he broke my bloodline shackles and destroyed my 9-palace soul locking array. This prevented me from entering the inheritance hall to obtain Rizu's inheritance. Second, this demon Yi plotted against me on the Thunder Ancient Path and caused me to be struck by lightning. As the son of a divine lord, I actually fell to the last place. Third, this demon Yi dared to use my divine spear to pierce through my body. Yi Fei, this ant, must die. However, he can only die in my hands. Boom! The divine spear was suddenly pulled out from Lu Qianzhong's body. This son of a divine lord, this genius of divine land, was indeed a terrifying opponent. His arrogance and strength gave others immense pressure. At this moment, Lu Qianzhong ignored his injuries and was about to rush forward while berating Bai Leng. He wanted to continue fighting with Yi Fei. If it was before, Bai Leng would not have dared to attack Yi Fei in the face of Lu Qianzhong's reprimand. However, it was different now. He and Yi Fei were both injured, and it was the best opportunity for him to attack. Moreover, the strongest people here were Lu Qianzhong and Yi Fei. If he did not deal with these two experts first, the others would not be able to obtain Rizu's inheritance. Finally, the temptation of the inheritance, Bai Lung's attack, and Yi Fei and Lu Qianzhong's injuries made Xiao Yang and Qin Wuyang, the two members of the royal family, unable to bear it any longer. Great Ice Seal. Silently, Xiao Yang made his move again. In an instant, the void was once again frozen into a huge block of ice. Within the ice, Qin Wuyang's fists were like hammers as he charged ferociously towards Lu Qianzhong, who had just stabilized himself. The son of a divine lord was instantly infuriated. Yi Fei's expression turned cold. The explosion in his chest did not cause him to lose his ability to fight. On the contrary, Lu Qianzhong's serious injury and the sudden attack from Bai Lung and the others had completely ignited Yi Fei's fighting spirit. You want my body? I want your life. Get lost. Boom. The black iron heavy sword was raised once again. Without any hesitation, it smashed Bai Lung's ghost claw into pieces. Bai Lung's expression instantly turned cold. Let's see how many more of my ghost claw and 1,000 corpse claw you can block. Woo woo woo. Woo woo woo. Suddenly, ghostly cries and laughter could be heard from the void. Then, countless ghostly faces appeared behind Bai Lung. It was as if there were countless evil spirits living in Bai Lung's body. These evil spirits extended their icy cold corpse claw and charged towards Yi Fei crazily. Yi Fei had no way of resisting Bai Lung's innate mystique, which was comparable to a heavenly lord's. His chest exploded again as countless zombie claws tore open a ghastly wound. Even Bai Lung's fingernails were dyed red. Barf. On the other side, Lu Qianzhong spat out mouthfuls of blood. As he was seriously injured, he simply could not block Xiao Yang and Qin Wuyang's joint attack. After all, these three princes were the top geniuses in Qingzhou. Any one of them possessed combat strength that was comparable to the Lord of Heaven. If Yi Fei and Lu Qianzhong were in their best condition, they would not be bothered. However, as they were seriously injured, the three of them had taken advantage of the situation. Xiao Yang and Qin Wuyang, who had repelled Lu Qianzhong for the first time, laughed out loud. Haha, Lu Qianzhong, I did not expect you to have such a day. Now, you and Yi Fei shall go to hell together and become a pair of unjust ghosts. The two of them were indeed vicious. They knew that if they attacked, they would offend the son of the Sir God. They instantly wanted to kill Lu Qianzhong and take the opportunity to kill him. You think you can kill me with just the two of you? Go to hell. Lu Qianzhong was completely enraged. Suddenly, a terrifying aura emerged from his body. Even Yi Fei had never felt such an aura when he fought against Lu Qianzhong. Yi Fei, who was blocking Bai Lung's ghost claw, broke out in cold sweat. Lu Qianzhong still has a trump card. Oh no, retreat. Xiao Yang and Qin Wuyang were frightened by the sudden burst of aura. They retreated at the same time, wanting to avoid the attack. However, Lu Qianzhong's lightning spear was too fast. A jade pendant flew out from his neck, and a terrifying lightning spear radiance burst out from the jade pendant. Like a sharp arrow, it pierced through the void and pierced through Xiao Yang and Qin Wuyang's bodies. Then, the two of them screamed in agony. A Sir God's superpower. You actually have a Sir God's superpower hidden in your body. They were filled with hatred. If they did not have this superpower, they might really be able to kill Lu Qianzhong. However, a Sir God's superpower was too terrifying. Even though it was just a superpower that had been hidden in advance, it was still not something that the two of them could withstand. However, at the critical moment of life and death, Xiao Yang and Qin Wuyang were forced to use their trump card. A jade pendant flew out from their neck. It was a protective jade pendant that only a Tao Lord could refine. It was also because of the power of this jade pendant that they were not instantly killed by the Sir God's superpower. However, their bodies were pierced through and they were severely injured. They also lost the ability to join forces to kill Lu Qianzhong. Yi Fei was shocked when he sensed the situation on the other side. As expected, the three of them are not easy to deal with. I have to end this quickly. Otherwise, if Lu Qianzhong uses another Sir God's superpower, I will be dead. At this thought, Yi Fei did not hesitate anymore. Although he was not as extravagant as Lu Qianzhong, he still had his own trump card. The undying sword soul had absorbed a large amount of nomological lightning on the Thunder Ancient Road. Yi Fei did not have the time to refine the lightning and condensed it all within the undying sword soul. At this moment, when he summoned the undying sword token and released all the nomological lightning inside, the entire void turned into a terrifying thunder world. Thousands of thunder laws fell like a storm, completely drowning Bai Lung. Amidst the loud roar, Bai Lung let out a horrible shriek and a roar of rage. Then, the ghostly shadows in the sky disappeared. At the same time, a ghostly infant that was almost electrocuted into charcoal emerged from the thunder. In the midst of the thunder world, a ghost infant rushed out pathetically. Yi Fei, how dare you destroy my beloved physical body? Not just the physical body. I will also destroy a perverted ghost infant like you. Die. Chapter 2159. Yi Fei's expression turned solemn. Seems like the rumor is true. Sky River Tao Lord is not dead. Otherwise, you wouldn't have the Tao Lord's life protection jade pendant. Humph, it's too late to know now. You killed King Qi and Madame Meng and destroyed one of my bodies. This debt can only be settled with your corpse. Bai Lung's ghost infant sneered. As he retreated, he took out many ice coffins from his space belt. There were many corpses in them. Obviously, these were Bai Lung's collection. In the end, Bai Lung chose the most handsome male corpse. The ghost infant turned into a black gas and entered the corpse. The corpse suddenly broke out of the ice and Bai Lung sighed. This corpse is good in every way. It's just that the body isn't strong enough. I have to change it after wearing it for a while. However, if I can get your body, I can definitely keep wearing it. Even though he was severely injured, Bai Lung stared at Yi Fei with passion and persistence. Especially when he saw the god tribulation liquid released by the undying sword soul rapidly healing Yi Fei's injuries, Bai Lung's eyes shone with a terrifying light. That light made Yi Fei, Lu Qianzhong, Xiao Yang and Qin Weiyang's scalp go numb. Who would have thought that Bai Lung would be so perverted to wear corpses as clothes? Even though he had the body of a ghost infant, it was still too terrifying. When they saw that even though Yi Fei and Lu Qianzhong were seriously injured, they were still able to unleash such terrifying destructive power, Xiao Yang and Qin Weiyang ignored their injuries and quickly stood together with Bai Lung, forming an alliance of three. At that moment, they no longer dared to look down on Yi Fei. Instead, they considered Yi Fei as their ally. They treated Yi Fei as a dangerous person like Lu Qianzhong. The scene changed from a chaotic battle to a three-way confrontation. At the same time, Yi Fei, Xiao Yang and Qin Weiyang stared at Lu Qianzhong cautiously. After all, the Lord God's superpower that Lu Qianzhong had just released was too terrifying. What was worse was that their life protection jade pendants had shattered one after another. If Lu Qianzhong still had a second Lord God superpower, no one would be able to block it. Anyone who was hit would die. The expressions of Xiao Yang and the other two were very serious. Yi Fei didn't say anything. He just sat cross-legged on the ground and quickly recovered from his injuries. The others were stunned and did the same. Even Lu Qianzhong hesitated for a while and suddenly sat cross-legged to recover from his injuries. However, their gazes were wary of each other. They were on guard against any possible sneak attacks from their opponent. Just like that, the stalemate lasted for an hour. Yi Fei's injuries were almost healed. Lu Qianzhong's body emitted a shocking murderous aura and battle intent again. Xiao Yang and Qin Weiyang's expressions changed. The god monarch's divine ability had caused them great harm. Just 1 hour was far from enough for them to fully recover. Bai Lung looked at Yi Fei's body with a yearning gaze. However, when he saw Yi Fei's faintly discernible black iron heavy sword, fear flashed across his eyes. There was fear on his face. Obviously, Bai Lung, who had suffered a loss once, didn't dare to target Yi Fei alone. Xiao Yang and Qin Wuyang, who had seen Lu Qianzhong's power, didn't dare to attack again. The situation was in a stalemate again. However, such a stalemate had to be broken. After all, there was only one inheritance from Rizhu and there were 5 people present. Among them, the biggest threat was Lu Qianzhong. Thinking of the terror of his Lord God's superpower, Yi Fei finally made up his mind. Brother Xiao, Brother Qin, Brother Bai, you have all seen how terrifying Lu Qianzhong is. Why don't we team up and get rid of the biggest threat first? Yi Fei suggested to team up again. Strictly speaking, he had already teamed up with Xiao Yang and Qin Wuyang once. However, the process was unbearable. Hearing Yi Fei's suggestion, Xiao Yang and Qin Wuyang, who had teamed up before, were very tempted. After all, no matter how threatening Yi Fei was, he wasn't as threatening as Lu Qianzhong, who had concealed his Lord God's superpower. Did I, Lu Qianzhong, dig up your ancestors' graves or something? Why do you keep targeting me? Do you believe that I will use my Lord God's superpower and take your life now? Lu Qianzhong was furious. Outside, he didn't need to take a small figure like Yi Fei seriously. However, this small figure was now outside. This small figure was a huge threat to him. Lu Qianzhong's killing intent soared. Yi Fei was also very courageous. He pointed to his chest that had just recovered and said, "Come, hit me here. If you can use your Lord God's superpower again, I will admit defeat." "Humph, you want to provoke me? Do you think I will fall for your trick a second time?" Lu Qianzhong sneered continuously. Previously, at the Thunder Ancient Road, he had been provoked and fought desperately with Yi Fei for first place. In the end, he was dragged into a battle of attrition and used up a large amount of his bloodline power. As a result, he fell from first place to last. First place. It was shameful enough for him to experience such humiliation once. How could he experience it again? Moreover, Lu Qianzhong only had one divine sovereign super skill. He would not be able to withstand it if there were more. However, Lu Qianzhong had obviously learned his lesson after suffering such a great loss. He didn't reveal the fact that he didn't have any more Lord God's superpower. Instead, he pretended to be profound. He glanced at Xiao Yang and the other 2 coldly and said, "We don't have any feud. We are purely competitors. If you join forces with me to kill Yi Fei, I can make an exception and allow you to enter Rizhu's tomb with me." Enter Rizhu's tomb together. Although Lu Qianzhong's words were vague, Xiao Yang and the other 2 obviously understood that Lu Qianzhong was compromising and was willing to share Rizhu's inheritance with them. A genius from the divine prefecture is actually so humble. Lu Qianzhong, it seems like Lord God Bai Yun's superpower is gone. Yi Fei was very certain. Xiao Yang and the other 2 instantly looked at Lu Qianzhong. "Humph, you are just an ant. How would you know how terrifying a Lord God is? Xiao Yang, you better think carefully." Lu Qianzhong had already used Lord God Bai Yun's name to threaten them. Xiao Yang and the other 2's faces instantly turned ugly. At the same time, they looked at Yi Fei fiercely. Bai Ling even mocked, "Yi Fei, Lu Qianzhong has promised to share Rizhu's inheritance with us. What about you? What can you promise us? For example, your body." Bai Ling's eyes were burning. Yi Fei's hair stood on end. He suddenly pointed at Bai Ling and scolded, "Get lost. If you dare to say another word, I will destroy this key right now." Boom. Yi Fei was enraged by the fact that his body was coveted. He activated the vermilion bird mystique, and raging flames engulfed the thunderbolt key in an instant. The thunderbolt key roared continuously as it burned. Lu Qianzhong and the other 3 were frightened by this scene. It should be known that this was the key to entering Rizu's tomb. If it was destroyed by Yi Fei, then no one would be able to obtain Rizu's inheritance. Everyone's efforts would be in vain. Bai Lung was so frightened that he didn't dare to speak. Lu Qianzhong's entire body tensed up. However, he didn't dare to step forward as he was afraid that he would agitate Yi Fei and destroy the key. Xiao Yang hurriedly released endless ice to lower the temperature around Yi Fei. He said, "Brother Yi, you must calm down. Let's talk things over. As long as you hand over the key, we can negotiate any conditions." "Why didn't you say so earlier? I am not an impulsive person," Yi Fei complained on the spot. Xiao Yang and the other two were so angry that they almost scolded him. "You are not human when you are impulsive." Chapter 2160. Brother Yi, we won't attack you anymore. We promise that we won't team up with Lu Qianzhong. Xiao Yang, the crown prince of the snow cloud country, was so scared that his face turned pale when he saw the thunderbolt key being pulled by Yi Fei. It was obvious that the key was about to break. Bai Lung and Qin Wuyang were also deathly pale. After all, the three princes' main goal in coming here was to fight for the Lightning Ancestors' treasures. If they lost the treasures, their losses would be too great. Moreover, they could tell that Yi Fei was a man of his words. This made this honest man anxious. The consequences were unimaginable. Lu Qianzhong, make a statement too. Xiao Yang and the other two princes tried their best to appease Yi Fei. At the same time, they winked at Lu Qianzhong, hinting to him that he should compromise when necessary. Compared to Yi Fei's life, Rizu's inheritance was more important. Lu Qianzhong's face turned even uglier. However, he also understood that if he continued to attack Yi Fei, Xiao Yang and the other two princes would immediately stand against him and attack him at the same time. "Aunt, you win. Now, let's stop fighting and not target each other. Let's enter Rizu's tomb together and fight for Rizu's inheritance with our own abilities. What do you think?" Lu Qianzhong was forced to compromise. This was the biggest concession he could make. Xiao Yang, Qin Wuyang, and Bai Ling nodded in agreement. Yi Fei also stopped breaking the lightning key. He said in a low voice, "I don't care if I want Rizu's inheritance or not. It's fine if I don't break the key. Lu Qianzhong, I want the method to break the seal of the Lord God." His main goal in entering Rizu's tomb wasn't to snatch the treasure, but to save people. However, although he succeeded in saving people, he couldn't break the seal left behind by Lord God Bai Yun. Therefore, he could only seek help from Lu Qianzhong, the son of the Lord God. Lu Qianzhong sneered. "She's your woman? No wonder you are so desperate. However, if you want me to remove their Divine Lord restriction, you must first activate the lightning key and open the entrance to Rizu's tomb." "Humph, what if I open the tomb but you don't remove the Divine Lord seal?" Yi Fei was no fool. How could he be fooled so easily? Lu Qianzhong didn't say anything. He just took out 4 black tokens and said coldly, "This is not up to you. Do you think that just because you snatched her away, you've succeeded in saving her? You're underestimating the methods of a divine lord. I'm not afraid to tell you that these 4 tokens are the key to unlocking their divine lord seals. If you know what's good for you, then open the entrance to Rizu's tomb right now. If you don't, then I'll destroy it so that you can only watch your woman live with an iron mask forever." Lu Qianzhong's threat was extremely vicious. At least Yi Fei couldn't suppress his strong killing intent when he heard it. However, he didn't dare to take the risk. If what Lu Qianzhong said was true, the consequences would be too severe. Thinking of this, Yi Fei could only make a compromise. He nodded with difficulty and said, "All right, then it's a deal. However, I want to check the authenticity of the token." Swoosh. A token was thrown over by Lu Qianzhong. Yi Fei caught it and took a look. He could sense a blurry figure of a lady within the token. The figure was surrounded by Sir God runes. It seemed that as long as he removed the runes, he would be able to remove the Sir God restriction on the lady. The token is real. Now you should open Rizu's tomb, right? Lu Qianzhong stared coldly at Yi Fei. He even acted as if he was going to crush one of the tokens. Yi Fei's expression was cold. He finally used his dark force and activated the Thunderbolt key. The void suddenly shook violently. Behind Yi Fei, a huge black hole appeared silently. At the same time, a terrifying aura was emitted from the black hole. Rizu's tomb must be in there. If we rush in, we will be able to obtain Rizu's inheritance. Xiao Yang and the other two were trembling with excitement. Lu Qianzhong's gloomy face flashed with joy. However, when he saw Yi Fei blocking the entrance of the black hole, his eyes flashed fiercely. Get lost. Rizu's inheritance will not be obtained by a lowly commoner like you. Didn't you want to save someone? Go and save her now. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. When Rizu's tomb opened, Lu Qianzhong suddenly did something. He threw the 3 tokens in his hand in different directions. Yi Fei did not say anything. Since he knew that these tokens were the key to removing the Divine Lord's seal, even if he knew that it was a trap, he had to fall for it. After all, his original intention was to save someone. Swoosh. Without any hesitation, Yi Fei instantly charged towards the nearest command medallion. At the same time, he had Xiao Chao keep an eye on where the other 2 command medallions were flying. He is indeed stupid. As long as he obtains Rizu's inheritance, he can get any woman he wants. He actually gave up the opportunity to obtain Rizu's inheritance for a woman. Lu Qianzhong shook his head. Although he also had a heart of beauty, he could resolutely give up on Rizu's inheritance. That was a meaningless feeling. Xiao Yang, Qin Weiyang, and Bai Ling were the same. They looked at Yi Fei's back view with a mocking expression. However, they did not take the opportunity to besiege Yi Fei. After all, compared to killing Yi Fei, obtaining Rizu's inheritance was more important. Hence, after Yi Fei rushed out, Xiao Yang and the other 2 immediately rushed into the black hole with Lu Qianzhong as fast as they could. Yi Fei's expression instantly changed. However, when he saw the 2 badges flying at high speed, he clenched his teeth and his body moved like lightning. After grabbing one of the badges, he charged toward the other one. He repeated this 3 times before he finally managed to collect all 4 badges. After that, Yi Fei did not rush into the entrance of Rizu's tomb. After all, he had already wasted so much time. Even if he rushed in now, he would lose the initiative. So what if I am stupid? Compared to those so-called benefits, I would rather believe in the feelings in my heart. He took the 4 tokens and took advantage of the fact that there was no one around to quickly grab the 4 women hidden in the beast mark space. However, Yi Fei did not grab people. Instead, he grabbed a pitch-black black pot. Yi Fei's expression immediately darkened. Only then did he realize that the dragon turtle had actually stuffed all the people into the black pot. Fortunately, these women were fine. He then untied the black cloth on the heads of the other 3 women and took out their corresponding tokens. He then used his divine sense to erase the control runes inside the tokens. Bam! As the runes were destroyed, the black metal masks on the 3 women's faces finally broke, revealing 3 pale and frightened faces. Seeing that the tokens were indeed effective, Yi Fei was also excited. He took out the last token and tried to undo the seal. However, his expression soon turned extremely ugly. The last token, which was also the most important one, was revealed. Chapter 2161. Lu Qianzhong actually played a trick. Yi Fei's eyes were suddenly filled with killing intent and anger. However, when he saw the figure standing there like a wooden puppet, Yi Fei's tone became gentler. Don't worry. No matter what method I use, I will definitely remove your Sir God seal. He looked very serious. Then, he felt a comforting and encouraging gaze. That gaze lifted his mood a little. After all, he already knew that Lu Qianzhong had thrown out these tokens as a trap. In order to save Lu Qianzhong, he had no choice but to fall into the trap. I won't let this matter go so easily. I must snatch the token from Lu Qianzhong that can remove the Sir God seal. Yi Fei's eyes flashed with a hint of determination. Once again, he put the familiar figure into the black pot and put it back into the beast mark space. As for the remaining 3 frightened women, Yi Fei didn't care about them. He just rushed into the entrance of the lightning ancestor's tomb. The remaining 3 ladies looked at each other and did not know what to do. In the end, they simply gritted their teeth and rushed into the void entrance. There was no lightning in Rizu's tomb. There was only a gray sky and a dry ground. On the ground, there were palaces that had turned into ruins. Before Yi Fei had entered, Lu Qianzhong and the rest had searched all these palaces. There was nothing left, and Yi Fei was even more depressed. He could only speed up and hope that he could catch up with Lu Qianzhong before he obtained Rizu's inheritance. This time, Yi Fei swore that he would definitely beat Lu Qianzhong to death. Roar! At this moment, there was a violent ghost howl from the last palace in the distance. It was Bai Ling's ghost infant that was howling as though it had encountered a great danger. Yi Fei's heart skipped a beat. However, he still rushed to the palace in the distance as fast as he could. After that, Yi Fei saw a scene that caused him to be incomparably shocked. What he saw from afar was not a palace, but a huge mausoleum. At that moment, Bai Ling's mournful ghost howl was emitted from within the mausoleum. Yi Fei jumped in fright. Needless to say, Lu Qianzhong and the others must have rushed into the mausoleum. Either there was a fight or they had encountered some danger. With the situation unclear, Yi Fei was very cautious. Of course, he would not step into it easily. Xiao Qiao, use your senses and see if there's anything special around us. Xiao Qiao did not sense anything. Instead, he screamed in fear. The ceiling of the mausoleum palace suddenly opened its mouth like an evil spirit. It suddenly aimed at Yi Fei and took a deep breath. Xiao Qiao, who was very afraid of ghosts, was so scared that his face turned pale. Yi Fei's face also turned pale. He realized that as the dome opened like a coffin, his body was moving uncontrollably toward the interior of the mausoleum. Clang! At the crucial moment, Yi Fei quickly stabbed the black iron heavy sword into the ground. Even so, his body was still moving rapidly toward the interior of the mausoleum. The ground was plowed by the heavy sword, leaving a deep mark like a ravine. Yi Fei's body was also quickly sucked into the interior of the mausoleum like quicksand. After that, he saw an even more terrifying scene. He saw that there was a huge thunder coffin that was formed purely by lightning inside the mausoleum. Around the thunder coffin, there were 5 god pillars erected. Feeling the aura of the god pillars, the dragon turtle in the beast mark space suddenly started to tremble. After all, the dragon turtle was also a dragon species. The 5 god pillars that surrounded the thunder coffin were evolved from the bones of 5 real divine dragons. Moreover, through the aura of the bones, Yi Fei was shocked and speculated that these 5 divine dragons were most likely powerful existences at the monarch god realm. It was a pity that these 5 monarch god divine dragons were killed by someone. The dragon bones were made into god pillars and the dragon skin became the treasure map for Renzu's treasure. Squeak, squeak. Xiao Qiao suddenly discovered something and screamed even more terrifyingly. It was a ghostly hand that stretched out from the void. It seemed like it wanted to pass through the beast mark space and grab Xiao Qiao to eat. This made Xiao Qiao, who was very afraid of ghosts, jump into the immortal crystal bed with a swoosh. He covered his entire body with a blanket. However, in Yi Fei's eyes, it was not a ghostly hand. It was clearly a ghostly corpse claw that Bai Ling's ghost infant had turned into. However, such a ghostly hand seemed even more terrifying in this eerie mausoleum. What was strange was that Bai Ling's body did not appear. Only his ghostly corpse claw came crazily with a shriek. Yi Fei's battle instincts also made him subconsciously wave his dark, iron-heavy sword and slash at the incoming ghostly corpse claw. However, at this moment, the surrounding space suddenly became extremely cold. Even the heavy sword that Yi Fei was waving was frozen into a terrifying layer of ice. Great ice sealing art, Xiao Yang. Yi Fei enunciated each word clearly as he sensed the source of the cold air. Then, he saw two iron fists condensing the light of war hammers coming from the other side. It seemed like they were going to smash his head. Battle King Fist, Qin Wuyang. Yi Fei looked even more furious. Is it your turn now, Lu Qianzhong? The golden body of laws shone with a blazing light. Facing the attacks of Xiao Yang and the other two, Yi Fei did not even look at them. He only focused on waiting for Lu Qianzhong's fatal blow. However, he could not figure out the reason why these people did not fight for Rizu's inheritance. Instead, they suddenly joined forces to target the person who was the most vulnerable. The one who came in later was himself. Boom! Bai Ling's ghostly corpse claw and Battle King Fist landed on Yi Fei's body at the same time. However, Yi Fei did not move at all. His mid-stage Dominator realm and the powerful defense of the golden body of laws allowed him to successfully block the attacks of these two people. Then, a sky full of ice whizzed towards Yi Fei. At this moment, there was a shocking purple-gold flame on Yi Fei's body. The intense flame easily shattered the sky full of ice. The black iron heavy sword in his hand also shattered the layer of ice. However, Yi Fei still did not take the initiative to attack. Instead, he was on guard against Lu Qianzhong's possible sneak attack. However, the strange thing was that Bai Lung and the other two's divine abilities were endless. However, Lu Qianzhong did not show any signs of attacking. Moreover, the more Yi Fei fought, the more confused he became. He did not see Lu Qianzhong, Bai Lung, and the others. However, their divine abilities seemed to appear out of thin air. Now they were continuously attacking him. Could this be an illusion? After fighting in the land for many years, Yi Fei thought of a possibility. He stopped fighting against these divine abilities that appeared out of thin air. Instead, he started to retreat quickly, wanting to rush out of this mausoleum. However, just as Yi Fei was about to fly up, suddenly, a crack appeared on the thunder casket in the middle of the 5 god pillars. From the crack, there seemed to be the sound of thunder. Boom! Chapter 2162. The tomb of the lightning ancestor was shaped like a palace. On the ground were 5 huge pillars made of divine dragon bones, and in the middle of the pillars was a huge coffin made of thunder. Because the coffin was so large and exquisite, it looked like the dome of the palace, and was divided into 5 parts by the 5 divine dragon bones. The 5 pillars were supported by the rules. At this moment, Bai Lung, Qin Wuyang, and Xiao Yang, the 3 royals, were each tied to a pillar made of divine dragon bones. It was unknown if they had blasphemed Rizu's thunderous coffin, but there were 5 mysterious thunderous chains hanging down from the thunderous coffin. These chains were connected to the pillars and then wrapped around Bai Lung, Qin Wuyang, and Xiao Yang. On the 4th pillar, Yi Fei also discovered Lu Qianzhong. He was also tied to a pillar and was wrapped in chains. However, Lu Qianzhong wasn't like Bai Lung and the others. He wasn't separated from Yi Fei. Kong didn't activate his mystique. Instead, he closed his eyes and seemed to be struggling. What was even stranger was that when Yi Fei fell into the middle of the 5 pillars, which was also under the dome of the thunderous coffin, Bai Lung and the other 2 were completely bound to the pillars by the thunderous chains. They couldn't even move a finger, let alone activate their mystique. If that was the case, then what was going on with those divine abilities that attacked him outside? Could it really be an illusion? Finally, Yi Fei's gaze fell on Lu Qianzhong. Outside, Lu Qianzhong was the only one who hadn't used his mystique to attack him. Perhaps only from this person would he know what had happened here and what kind of test Rizu had set for him. More importantly, He wanted to take the real token from Lu Qianzhong that could lift the seal on a divine lord. Yi Fei lifted his leg and rushed towards Lu Qianzhong. Then, he felt a huge pulling force on his body. Not only was he unable to get close to Lu Qianzhong, but he was also forcefully bound to the fifth pillar. What's going on? Since when did a lightning chain wrap around my waist? This chain was almost transparent. When it wrapped around him, Yi Fei did not feel anything at all. This was not because he was careless, but because this lightning chain was too strange. When Yi Fei didn't move, it didn't move at all. But the moment Yi Fei activated his profound energy, the chain seemed to have been activated. The transparent chains suddenly turned into countless bolts of lightning. Like a giant divine python with infinite strength, they coiled around Yi Fei and dragged him towards the fifth pillar. Break! Yi Fei's expression changed drastically. He immediately raised the black iron heavy sword in his hand and furiously slashed at the strange lightning chain. Roar! A strange ghostly howl came from the thunderbolt casket. It wasn't a real ghostly howl, but the 5 divine dragon bones that had been refined into pillars. They were howling sorrowfully and angrily. These 5 divine dragons had been divine lords when they were alive, but they had been killed by Rizu and refined into pillars that supported the thunderbolt casket. That kind of resentment and unwillingness was like a hurricane, rushing towards Yi Fei. He simply could not resist. His body had already been forcefully dragged to the top of the 5th divine pillar by an incomparably terrifying power of the ghost god. He was tightly bound and could no longer raise the black iron heavy sword. Golden body of laws! Yi Fei's body was like fire. Since the heavy sword could not be used, he immediately released the vermilion bird's law. Boundless flames engulfed him and the entire pillar. He wanted to burn the pillar and the chains together. Boom! At the same time, the voice of a divine dragon was heard from Yi Fei's body. It was like the anger of an azure dragon. He activated the azure dragon's law in an attempt to break the chains completely. His struggle caused the entire divine pillar to tremble violently. It felt as though a demonic god had been completely enraged. Roar! Suddenly, a roar came from the heavens and earth. It was a dragon's roar that shattered the sky and its claws that tore the earth apart. In front of Yi Fei, the lightning chain that was wrapped around his body had turned into a mighty divine dragon. That divine dragon's body was as big as the heavens and earth. In front of this divine dragon, Yi Fei was like an ant. He felt like an ant looking up at a mountain. His spirit was instantly impacted greatly. What a terrifying dragon aura! This must be the aura of a divine lord when the divine dragon was alive. No wonder Bai Lung and the others were bound by the chains the moment they stepped in. They even seemed to have lost their consciousness. After all, although Bai Lung and the other 2 were strong, they were only limited to the geniuses of Qingzhou. The strongest realm they had seen was a Tao Lord. Qingzhou didn't have a divine lord, so they naturally couldn't sense the aura of a divine lord. At this moment, Bai Lung and the other 2 couldn't withstand the sudden eruption of a divine lord's aura. However, it was different for Lu Qianzhong. He was the son of a divine lord and had experienced the aura of a divine lord for many years. Hence, he already had the ability to resist it. Hence, when Bai Lung and the other 2's consciousness fell into the aura of a divine lord and were unable to extricate themselves, Lu Qianzhong could still struggle and continue to resist the aura of a divine lord. As he thought of this, Yi Fei suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. Why did this tomb of Rizu not feel like a land of inheritance? Instead, it felt like he had stepped into a trap. Roar! The divine dragon revealed its dragon body, and its mighty aura formed the most terrifying pressure in the world. It seemed like it wanted to make Yi Fei fall into fear and sink into oblivion. In response, Yi Fei's lips curled into a cold smile. If I hadn't experienced the aura of a divine lord, I might have really been frightened by you and lost my mind. That would have given you an opportunity to take advantage of it. However, it's a pity that you are just a divine lord. Do you really think that you can scare me? After all, the heavenly Tao tree in the paradise world was a half-step divine lord. Furthermore, the heavenly Tao tree itself was an incarnation of the heavenly Tao. Hence, a half-step divine lord's heavenly Tao tree possessed the aura of a divine lord. Furthermore, he had even seen and felt the consciousness of a Renzu realm expert like the Ninth Heaven Sword Master. To be honest, the sudden appearance of a divine lord's aura wasn't enough to scare him. Not only that, when the ghostly dragon revealed its dragon form and unleashed the might of a divine lord, Yi Fei glared at it and strode toward it with large strides. At this moment, the aura of a divine lord targeted his consciousness and not his body. Hence, in his consciousness, Yi Fei was free. His body wasn't bound by the lightning chains. In other words, in this consciousness space, Yi Fei could do whatever he wanted. After all, this was his consciousness space. He was the master of this place. The divine dragon was an outsider who had suddenly intruded. It was like a nightmare in one's sleep. Boom. Chapter 2163. However, Yi Fei was different. From the earth realm to the heaven realm, he had experienced too many life and death situations. The more critical the situation was, the calmer he became. Shatter. Divine 5 lightning clock. Boom. Boom. Yi Fei activated his strongest mystique in his consciousness. The divine 5 lightning clock transformed into a golden divine clock that enveloped him completely. Then, Yi Fei faced the challenge head-on. Suddenly, 2 more divine clocks appeared in his hands. The real 5 Thunders divine clock could be condensed into 5 bells. It was just that Jiang Zhen's perception wasn't high enough, so he couldn't comprehend it. As for Yi Fei, what he didn't lack the least was perception. Boom. Boom. Yi Fei threw out the 2 condensed divine clocks with all his might. Then, countless lightning bolts appeared at his feet and condensed into 2 more divine clocks. Who said that divine clocks could only be formed by hands? At this moment, Yi Fei used his feet for the first time to condense 2 more divine clocks. He kicked with all his might. The 4 divine clocks had already transformed into 4 roaring lightning bolts that exploded on the body of the huge divine dragon. The divine dragon immediately let out an angry roar that was filled with resentment. It was as if it was furious that Yi Fei had seen through its facade. Boom. That enormous dragon claw landed on Yi Fei's 5th god bell. Unexpectedly, although the dragon claw looked ferocious like a demon god, its attack power was pitifully weak. Yi Fei couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. Then, he came to a realization. That's right. Even if this divine dragon was a ser-god when it was alive, after it died, not only did it lose its celestial soul, even its dragon bones were refined into divine pillars to support the huge divine lightning coffin. It looks ferocious, but it is only strong on the outside and weak on the inside. It can only scare people. As long as he saw through this, Yi Fei no longer had any fear in his heart when he faced the huge divine dragon again. Only endless fighting spirit burned in his body like a raging fire. Kill. Without giving the mystical dragon a chance to retaliate, Yi Fei released another 4 god bells from his hands and feet. Following which, Yi Fei spat out lightning from his mouth. Who said that he could only use his feet to form god bells? He could still use his profound energy and spit out the divine bell. Yi Fei had broken through to the middle stage of the Dominator realm and his fate wheels had been upgraded from 9 to 11. This undoubtedly inspired him greatly. His thinking became more flexible. All sorts of strange and wonderful ideas were completely revealed through his martial arts. And in the face of Yi Fei's crazy divine clock that didn't follow common sense, even the spectral dragon, who had been a divine lord when it was alive, felt sluggish. Following that, the spectral dragon let out an angry and indignant roar. After being exposed as a paper tiger, the divine dragon was no longer an obstacle to Yi Fei. On the contrary, Cheng had become a meat shield for Yi Fei's martial arts. Under the bombardment of the rolling lightning god bells, the ridiculously huge mystical dragon was quickly blasted into pieces. It turned into a puff of green smoke and completely dissipated in Yi Fei's consciousness. Phew! I have finally broken free of the divine dragon's resentment. As the mystical dragon dissipated, Yi Fei's vision returned to normal. The mysterious thunderclap coffin was still in the sky. 5 huge lightning chains hung down from it. As they wrapped around the dragon bone divine pillar, they also bound Yi Fei and the other 4 tightly. They were firmly bound to the divine pillar and continuously attacked by the divine dragon's resentment. Under this attack, Xiao Yang's face turned pale and his body trembled. Qin Wuyang's face was contorted and his veins were bulging. Bai Ling's ghostly howls were incessant. He seemed to be experiencing terrible torture. This was also the reason why Yi Fei had heard the ghostly howls outside. It was obvious that Bai Ling and the other 2 royals were not very determined. They were still unable to break free of the divine dragon's resentment that had invaded their consciousness. However, Lu Qianzhong was indeed extraordinary. Just as Yi Fei killed the resentment of the divine dragon and returned to normal, on the other side, Lu Qianzhong, who was tightly tied to the god's pillar, let out a roar of relief. I have finally succeeded. I have finally walked out of that damned divine dragon's resentment. So what if Yi Fei won first place on the Thunder Ancient Path? I, Lu Qianzhong, am not the first to wake up in this last test. Cough, cough. Yi Fei could not bear to listen any longer. He coughed unhappily to indicate that there were other people present. Lu Qianzhong also instinctively looked at Yi Fei. Then, his originally smug face turned ugly as though he had eaten a fly. His face turned from red to green and from green to purple. If possible, Lu Qianzhong really wanted to stab Yi Fei to death with his spear. Why is it that when I am at my most smug, a lowly commoner like you always appears? Perhaps this is called fate, Yi Fei said seriously. Lu Qianzhong had the urge to vomit blood when he heard that. He wore a smile on his face, but there was a terrifying murderous aura around him. Haha, you are right. We are indeed fated. However, it is the fate of death. Yi Fei, you have spoiled my plans time and time again. If I don't kill you today, I will not be able to maintain my dignity. Boom. The dark force in Lu Qianzhong's body surged like raging waves and rivers. It was also like a crazy divine dragon. He was trying to break free from the thunder chain that was wrapped around his body. However, Yi Fei was not slow either. He raised his dark iron sword again and slashed at the thunder chain that was still tied around his waist. However, Yi Fei and Lu Qianzhong lifted their heads at the same time and looked at each other in shock. We cannot break this chain with our own strength. Both of us have to work together to break it. Yi Fei's face instantly turned ugly. Lu Qianzhong's face turned gloomy too. Very quickly, he thought of something and his gloomy expression turned arrogant again. Incomparably cold and arrogant, he said. Yi Fei, consider yourself lucky. I can spare your life as long as you help me break these damned chains on my body. Help you? You can't wait to kill me. Unless my brain is damaged, I will not help you. Yi Fei sneered. Why don't you help me first, then I will help you. Scram. Don't think that you can bargain with me just because you have some ability. You and I are from 2 different worlds. Lu Qianzhong's expression was cold and arrogant. Even though he was wary of Yi Fei's strength, Yi Fei's identity as a person from the land still filled him with disdain and disdain. Then, he took out a token and ordered coldly, "Come over and cooperate with me to break the chain on your body. If you dare to refuse, I will destroy this token now and your woman can only live with a Sir God's restriction on her dark iron mask forever." Yi Fei stared at Lu Qianzhong coldly. This is the second time you have used such a vicious method to threaten me. What I hate the most is being threatened by others. You've succeeded in provoking my killing intent. So what? As long as this token is in my hands, you still have to listen to my orders obediently. Lu Qianzhong said coldly. Yi Fei didn't say anything and only sighed helplessly. Then, he walked towards Lu Qianzhong with difficulty. The thunder chain that was wrapped around his back was continuously lengthening. Every time it lengthened, his body felt as though it was being strangled by an iron hoop. It was extremely uncomfortable. Chapter 2164. Yi Fei, how dare you plot against me? Lu Qianzhong roared furiously. Aren't you the same? A cold smile flashed across Yi Fei's face. Lu Qianzhong had threatened him once, but he was threatening him a second time. How could Yi Fei tolerate this? Moreover, he didn't believe that Lu Qianzhong would hand over the token after threatening him. Hence, he decided to make the first move and snatch the token from Lu Qianzhong. The only thing that Yi Fei didn't expect was that Lu Qianzhong had the same idea as him. Just as the two of them got closer and the dark iron heavy sword slashed out, a lightning-like divine spear pierced towards Yi Fei's throat at the same time. Clang! In the end, the heavy sword and the divine spear clashed in the air. There was a shocking wave of dark qi, but the dark qi didn't dissipate. Instead, it was absorbed by the lightning chains around their waist. Yi Fei's expression instantly became extremely solemn, even more solemn than when he faced Lu Qianzhong. Previously, I felt that it was very strange. Is this the lightning ancestor's test or a trap? These chains can trap us, but they can actually absorb our dark qi. Humph! That's because you are inexperienced. No matter if this is a test or a trap, only I, Lu Qianzhong, can obtain Rizu's inheritance. Get lost. Boom! Boundless lightning spear radiance exploded from Lu Qianzhong's divine spear. He waved the divine spear again, forming countless lightning bolts and thunderbolts that pierced forward continuously. The dark iron heavy sword in Yi Fei's hand also emitted dazzling divine runes. He actually activated the third-level divine runes at the same time, causing the power of the dark iron heavy sword to reach the level of the Lord of Heaven. In addition, Yi Fei's physical strength was comparable to that of the Lord of Heaven. His sword smashed out, smashing a dark hole in space. The power was so strong that a violent spatial storm swept through the entire void. Lu Qianzhong held the divine spear in his hand and stood proudly like a fiend god in the middle of this storm. An ominous glint flickered in his eyes as a sinister smile appeared on his face. At this moment, the sixth-ranked divine spear in his hand started to burn with a special light. That wasn't the light of divine inscriptions, but the light of the self-detonation of the sixth-ranked divine spear. Yi Fei, do you know why I want you to get close to me? Because only when you're close enough can the self-destruction of the spear kill you. Aren't you trying so hard for this token? I'll give it to you now. The self-destruction of the godly spear wasn't enough. In order to prevent Yi Fei from retreating, Lu Qianzhong viciously threw the token that could remove the seal on the Sir God on the ground. At this moment, if Yi Fei retreated, the token that could remove the seal on the Sir God would explode into dust. However, if he moved forward, he would have to face the threat of the self-destruction of the sixth-ranked divine spear. In an instant, a huge problem appeared in front of Yi Fei. However, what shocked Lu Qianzhong was that Yi Fei didn't hesitate at all. The moment he threw the token, Yi Fei's hand had already reached for it. Lu Qianzhong's face flashed with a sinister smile as he said disdainfully, "I knew that you would do this. Do you know why I look down on you? It's because you are too sentimental, and I happen to be the kind of person who will do anything for benefits." Godly spear, explode. Boom. The moment Yi Fei grabbed the token, the sixth-ranked weapon in Lu Qianzhong's hand exploded between the two of them. The force of the explosion was like an attack from a Sir God, causing cracks to appear in the void. This was Lu Qianzhong's strongest trump card. Not only so, when the divine weapon exploded, a jade medallion flew out from the neck of the son of the Divine Lord. That jade medallion was a protective jade pendant created by the Divine Lord himself. It was sufficient to block the impact of a 6th-ranked divine weapon. On the other hand, Yi Fei didn't have Lu Qianzhong's background. However, since he dared to charge into the explosion of the 6th-ranked weapon, he naturally wasn't impulsive. At the same time, when Yi Fei decided to charge forward, a bottle of heavenly divine liquid appeared in his hand. This was the blood essence refined from the heavenly divine tree. Consuming a drop of it would allow Yi Fei to obtain a trace of a Sir God's origin. With this origin, Yi Fei could unleash an attack that was comparable to a Sir God's. At this moment, Yi Fei swallowed the drop of heavenly divine liquid into his stomach. Instantly, the blood in his body burned like a raging fire. The black iron heavy sword in his hand also exploded with a terrifying divine sword light. This light tore apart the heavens and earth, as well as the impact of the explosion of the 6th-ranked weapon. This is impossible. He's just a commoner who was smuggled from the Earth domain. How could he obtain a Sir God's origin to unleash an attack that is comparable to a Sir God's? Damn it, I will definitely not let him obtain Rizu's inheritance. That kind of inheritance can only belong to me. But the intense sword light and the energy from the explosion of the 6th-rank divine weapon finally shattered Lu Qianzhong's final protective jade tablet. However, Lu Qianzhong himself wasn't injured at all. Furthermore, he was completely uninjured and even had the absolute advantage. This advantage finally made Lu Qianzhong have a huge killing intent. A 5th-ranked divine spear suddenly appeared in his hand. The sharp spear light was accompanied by terrifying lightning. He wanted to take advantage of the time when Yi Fei exhausted his profound qi after unleashing the Sir God's attack to kill Yi Fei instantly. Clang! At the crucial moment, Yi Fei once again used the black iron heavy sword as a shield and blocked in front of him. However, with his profound qi exhausted, the black iron heavy sword wasn't enough to block Lu Qianzhong's attack. Lu Qianzhong was uninjured and he spurted out a mouthful of blood. However, Lu Qianzhong's divine spear didn't kill Yi Fei because Yi Fei finally took out the dragon turtle at the crucial moment. Although the dragon turtle couldn't even last one round in front of Lu Qianzhong, if the dragon turtle only bit Yi Fei and retreated quickly, it would be more than enough. This caused Lu Qianzhong's killing intent to fail completely. Lu Qianzhong was suddenly furious. Damn it! You actually hit a turtle on your body. I want to kill, I want to kill! Roar! Lu Qianzhong's voice didn't last long. The explosion of the 6th-ranked divine spear, Yi Fei's Sir God's attack, and the majestic profound qi released during the battle were all absorbed by the lightning chains on their bodies. At this moment, it seemed that the lightning chains had reached the limit of what they could contain. The 2 lightning chains were like sleeping divine dragons that were awakened from their dreams. The divine pillars behind the 2 of them suddenly released a terrifying divine dragon aura. In front of this divine dragon aura, the dragon turtle that was biting Yi Fei and running all over the ground suddenly became like a small turtle cub. Its entire body went soft and was roared at. Chapter 2165. Yi Fei then realized that the lightning chains that trapped them were actually the dragon souls of God. Not only were their dragon bones refined into pillars, but even their dragon souls were refined into special lightning chains. He finally understood why the thunderbolt coffin in the palace released a terrifying suction force when he sensed that something was amiss and wanted to leave the palace. The suction force pulled him into the middle of the 5 pillars. It's obvious that this is a trap. There's no Rizu's treasure or Rizu's inheritance here. This might be a trap set up by Rizu. Yi Fei's face darkened. He tried his best to break the lightning chains formed by the dragon souls. After hearing Yi Fei's words, Lu Qianzhong decided not to attack Yi Fei anymore. his body suddenly burned with a layer of blood-red light. At the same time, the divine spear in his hand expanded and exploded once again. Along with a loud bang, the thunder chain on Lu Qianzhong's body exploded. The lightning chains exploded into two. What? Lu Qianzhong was seriously injured by the self-destruction of the divine weapon at such a close distance. However, he didn't care about healing his injuries or killing Yi Fei. The moment he broke free, he rushed towards the thunderbolt coffin in a frenzy. Boom! As though it had sensed Lu Qianzhong's approach, the thunderbolt coffin suddenly withdrew its boundless thunderbolts and turned into an ordinary ancient golden coffin. There was also a huge thunderbolt divine blade on top of the golden coffin that was exuding a heaven-like divine power. Renzu's might. Could that saber be the weapon of the human ancestor that the lightning ancestor used? Yi Fei's face was filled with astonishment, and he wasn't sure if this was a trap, or some sort of test set up by the lightning ancestor. 5 people would fight it out, and only one of them would be able to free themselves from the chains, pull out the weapon, and acquire it. Inheritance? All of this seems to be reasonable. However, why do I keep having a very uneasy feeling in my heart? Yi Fei's heart was heavy. He was hesitant. Lu Qianzhong had used the self-destruction of his divine weapon to break the lightning chains. Did he have to do the same to break free? However, the only divine weapon he had was the black iron heavy sword. It was because of this heavy sword that he could compete with a genius like Lu Qianzhong. Yi Fei couldn't bear to destroy it. While Yi Fei couldn't bear to part with it, Lu Qianzhong laughed maniacally and rushed towards the thunderbolt coffin at his fastest speed. Ha ha ha, I told you that Rizu's inheritance must be mine. No one can take it away from me. Only I, Lu Qianzhong, am qualified to become the new Rizu. Boom. Lu Qianzhong rushed forward and held his blade with both hands. He wanted to pull out the human ancestor's weapon. At this moment, the uneasiness in Yi Fei's heart intensified. He suddenly realized that the lightning chains that bound the 5 of them wasn't connected to the thunderbolt coffin was Rizu's inheritance. When Bing spoke, Yi Fei suddenly felt a huge fear in his heart. Something's not right. Why would Rizu set up such a strange test? Why would they connect the chains on Renzu's weapons to our bodies? At the same time, the awakened dragon souls in the lightning chains were also very strange. They had swallowed a large amount of dark force from the battle between him and Lu Qianzhong, as well as Bai Lung and the other 2. Where did the dark force go in the end? Lu Qianzhong, don't pull out the saber. A strong sense of uneasiness made Yi Fei roar. He even planned to explode his dark steel heavy sword to break the chains on his body. After all, the heavy sword was important, but his life was even more important. But Yi Fei's reminder was a step too late. Lu Qianzhong had already pulled out the human ancestor's weapon from the ancient golden coffin in ecstasy. Boom! Just as the Renzu weapon left the ancient coffin, Yi Fei suddenly felt a terrifying suction force from the chains that bound him. It started to crazily absorb all the energy in his body. Lu Qianzhong, who had pulled out the Renzu weapon, was very pleased with himself a moment ago. He thought that he could obtain Rizu's inheritance by pulling out the saber. But in the next moment, Lu Qianzhong screamed in horror. Why? This saber is crazily absorbing my bloodline power. No, it's even swallowing my spirit. Soul, this isn't Rizu's inheritance at all. Then, another ancient voice came out of Lu Qianzhong's mouth. No, you have indeed obtained my inheritance. But the price you have to pay for obtaining my inheritance is to offer your body and your spirit to bear the glory of my consciousness. Boom! Lu Qianzhong held the Renzu weapon in his hand. His bloodline and spirit were crazily absorbed by the Renzu weapon. Not only him, but the other 4 chains on the Renzu weapon also released a terrifying suction force. They started to absorb the bloodline power of Bai Lung, Qin Wuyang, and Xiao Yang at the same time. Yi Fei broke out in cold sweat. How could he not understand that Rizu's inheritance? It was a trap set by Rizu to revive himself. For this, Rizu didn't hesitate to deceive everyone in Qingzhou, including his most loyal subordinates. Black iron heavy sword, explode. Yi Fei didn't regret it anymore. He wanted to detonate the divine weapon as fast as he could and escape from this terrifying trap. But soon, his body became extremely weak. The lightning chains that bound him were like leeches, crazily absorbing the energy. They were absorbing the energy in his body. His meager demon god bloodline, his god power, and even his sovereign divine body showed signs of being robbed. Yi Fei's face flashed with shock. Other than the undying sword soul, he had never seen such a terrifying and domineering way of robbing power. Wait, the undying sword soul. Yi Fei raised his head again and looked at the Ren ancestor's weapon in Lu Qianzhong's hand. He suddenly had a strange feeling. If it wasn't a saber but a sword, the lightning ancestor's method of plundering was very similar to the undying sword soul. Does that mean that I can also use the undying sword soul to absorb the energy of the Renzu weapon? No matter what, it's worth a gamble. After all, if he allowed the Renzu weapon to absorb his energy, Yi Fei estimated that he would become a dried corpse soon. In order to survive, Yi Fei could only go all out. Instantly, his consciousness activated the undying sword token in his Heaven Palace divine soul. At the same time, an invisible sword vortex started to spin around Yi Fei's body. Undying sword soul, absorb. Absorb with all your might. Chapter 2166. Yi Fei had never felt that the undying sword soul could be so terrifying when it was enraged. Rizu's Renzu soldiers could steal the bloodline and power of others. It was already terrifying enough, but the undying sword soul was even more terrifying. Because the undying sword soul could directly steal the power of Renzu's soldiers. Under the full absorption of the indestructible sword soul, in just a dozen breaths of time, the profound energy in his body that had been completely depleted was instantly replenished. Then, when his dark force was full, the undying sword soul began to absorb the bloodline power of Renzu's soldiers through the lightning chains. These bloodline powers were obtained by Rizu through Renzu's soldiers. They had frantically plundered Lu Qianzhong, Qin Wuiyang, Bailong, and Xiaoyang. Originally, these powers were the key to Rizu's resurrection. But now, after being plundered by Renzu's soldiers, they were absorbed by the undying sword soul. They formed an endless stream of bloodline powers and entered Yi Fei's body. Under the stimulation of these bloodline powers, Yi Fei's blood boiled like boiling water. His meridians, his bones, his flesh, and even his cells exploded with a shocking power when the bloodline powers entered his body. This power was something that Yi Fei had never felt before. It was power, but it was power that erupted from the depths of his bloodline. Yi Fei was shocked. He suddenly remembered the heavenly Tao tree. There was a type of bloodline in the Earth domain called the Earthly Emperor's bloodline. This was a bloodline that even gods and demons feared. Therefore, anyone who possessed the Earthly Emperor's bloodline would be naturally sealed and rejected by the heavenly Tao. Humans. However, even the heavenly Tao tree did not know how to break this natural bloodline seal and awaken the Earthly Emperor's bloodline. Could it be that if I use the undying sword soul to absorb a large amount of bloodline powers, I can awaken the sealed Earthly Emperor's bloodline in my body? As for whether it was true or not, Yi Fei did not hesitate. Previously, he had ordered the undying sword soul to absorb as much as he could. Now, he was absorbing as much as he could. As more and more bloodline energy surged into Yi Fei's body, he suddenly felt that his blood was no longer boiling. Instead, it was evaporating into steam within his body. Yi Fei's brazen action of absorbing the bloodline powers finally attracted the attention of Lu Qianzhong, who had turned into Rizu. Rizu was trying his best to take over Lu Qianzhong's body, But he did not expect that there was someone under the 5 god pillars that could turn the tables and steal Renzu's bloodline powers. Renzu. Killed. This person. Lu Qianzhong suddenly let out a violent roar. His eyes were red. He was completely under the control of Renzu's bloodline powers. After that, a lightning-like saber light tore through the void and instantly slashed towards Yi Fei. However, Yi Fei didn't seem to have noticed it. It wasn't that Yi Fei didn't want to dodge, but rather, it was simply impossible for him to do so at this moment. The bloodline energy he had absorbed was simply too much and too powerful. This power was like a raging inferno that kept burning within his body. At the same time, an even more violent and mysterious power was awakening within Yi Fei's body bit by bit. Die! Lu Qianzhong's lightning-like blade light blasted towards Yi Fei at the fastest speed. The dragon turtle at the side could not bear to watch any longer. It immediately opened its mouth and tried to bite Yi Fei before retreating. However, the dragon turtle did not succeed this time. Just as the dragon turtle got close to Yi Fei, a majestic power suddenly erupted from Yi Fei's body. It was the power of bloodline. When this power appeared, a mysterious message suddenly appeared in Yi Fei's mind. This message was an extremely powerful natural superpower. At the same time, Lu Qianzhong's blade light had already reached Yi Fei. It seemed like it would kill Yi Fei in the next second. Suddenly, Yi Fei's eyes opened. Boundless bloodline power erupted from his body. Finally, it formed an incomparably resplendent blood-red sword light. It slashed forward. Bam! Lu Qianzhong's blade light was instantly engulfed by the sword light. Then, Lu Qianzhong's entire body was engulfed by the blood-red sword light and destroyed. Finally, when the sword light disappeared, Lu Qianzhong was no longer in front of Yi Fei. There was only a cold and broken corpse. Beside the corpse, there was a human ancestor's weapon. Before Lu Qianzhong could unleash the power of this Renzu's weapon, he was instantly killed by Yi Fei's god's tribulation. Yi Fei was stunned. He couldn't believe that the natural superpower that he had unleashed would have such terrifying power. Beside Lu Qianzhong's corpse, Rizu's shocked voice came from within Renzu's weapon. Who are you? How can your bloodline power be so ridiculously strong? I've made up my mind. I want your bloodline. Only our human ancestor deserves such power. Boom! Lightning flashed. Boundless lightning rushed out from Renzu's weapon and quickly formed a lightning giant. This giant was the consciousness that Rizu had hidden in the weapon. After being shocked by Yi Fei's terrifying natural superpower, Rizu immediately made a decision. He wanted to seize control of Yi Fei's terrifying bloodline as well as Yi Fei's. For this reason, Rizu didn't hesitate to use his main body's consciousness and rushed out. Yi Fei finally recovered from the shock of releasing the god's tribulation. Then, without a word, he released the god's tribulation again according to the information that appeared in his mind. Unfortunately, he didn't succeed this time because the bloodline power that supported him had been completely used up. With the depletion of the bloodline power, the awakened Emperor Earth's bloodline in Yi Fei's body immediately fell into a deep sleep and couldn't be sensed anymore. Yi Fei's face turned pale. Why does it seem like my bloodline has been sealed again? Haha, why? Because the bloodline in your body is too strong. That kind of power isn't something that you can completely awaken just by absorbing some bloodline energy. You can only temporarily awaken it. But this lord can replace you and control it forever. Now, hand over your body and your bloodline. Then, you can go and die. A huge lightning palm, carrying Rizu's anger and killing intent, suddenly grabbed Yi Fei's body. It was as if it wanted to grab Yi Fei's soul from the Sky Palace. This was Renzu's power. Even if it was just a wisp of consciousness, it still had a terrifying attack power. However, Rizu had been dead for thousands of years. Even if he used a secret technique to protect his Renzu's origin and consciousness from dissipating, once his consciousness left the divine weapon and was exposed to the outside world, even Renzu's origin and consciousness would be quickly depleted and dissipated until they were destroyed by the laws of heaven and earth. Chapter 2167. Ye Fei didn't just sit there and wait for his death. Instead, he raised his dark steel heavy sword and slashed at Rizu. At the same time, he retreated rapidly, trying to escape the attack range of the lightning palm. You can't escape. Your body and bloodline are destined to belong to me. Don't you want to inherit my legacy? I'll fulfill your wish now and turn you into the new Rizu. Although Rizu said that, he had no intention of fulfilling Ye Fei's wish. The lightning palm easily slapped the dark steel heavy sword out of his hand, tearing a deep wound on his palm. Then Ye Fei felt a suffocating lightning force. It shook him so much that blood came out of his ears and nose. His body trembled. However, Rizu had no intention of harming Ye Fei's body. After all, the bloodline hidden in Ye Fei's body had aroused Renzu's greed. Otherwise, when Ye Fei used the god's tribulation to kill Lu Qianzhong, Rizu could have controlled Renzu's troops and killed Ye Fei on the spot. Boom! The gigantic palm of lightning finally came crashing down, directly covering Ye Fei's head. Under the terrifying might of the human ancestor's consciousness, Ye Fei had no way of resisting at all. There was no other way. The difference in their cultivation levels was just too great. Soon, he felt a terrifying divine sense enter his body from the lightning palm. It seemed to want to forcibly open his sky palace and shatter his soul. Then, it would completely take over his body and steal his bloodline. Rizu has begun the possession. Ye Fei's face was pale. He couldn't resist the invasion of Rizu's divine sense. In a daze, he seemed to see a majestic man with lightning all over his body walking out of the void. He was getting closer and closer to his sky palace. Next, this man would walk into his sky palace and steal everything from him. Roar. It was also at this moment that the dragon turtle's roar sounded in Ye Fei's ears. Seeing that Ye Fei was in danger, the dragon turtle suddenly became extremely huge. Like a tumbling mountain, it slammed towards the lightning giant. Rizu's divine sense immediately stopped and stared disdainfully at the dragon turtle. A little turtle of the heavenly venerable realm? Your loyalty is not bad, but you've raised it too well. Get lost, you can't stop me. Boom. Rizu only extended a huge lightning finger and gently poked at the dragon turtle. The dragon turtle's huge body was knocked to the ground, unable to cause any damage to Rizu. Big Black. Rizu, I'll fight you to the death. Ye Fei's eyes turned red when he saw the dragon turtle lying on the ground, not knowing if it was still alive or not. He knew that things were looking grim this time. While he decided to fight with his life on the line, he also planned to throw Xiao Qiao and the last woman in the beast mark space far away. Xiao Qiao, take her and leave quickly. Whoosh. Another token was thrown at Xiao Qiao, but Xiao Qiao did not leave. After seeing Ye Fei and the dragon turtle defeated at the same time, Xiao Qiao, who was originally very afraid of ghosts, suddenly did not feel afraid anymore. Instead, a flame of anger burned in his heart. Squeak! Xiao Qiao didn't run away. Instead, she angrily rushed towards the incomparably huge thunder giant with her short legs while holding her vine whip. This giant was none other than the lightning ancestor's divine sense. When the lightning ancestor saw Little Grass, he was shocked. The spirit world has been destroyed. How can there be a spiritual object of heaven and earth in this world? No, you're not a spiritual being. You're an immortal. When Xiao Qiao's vine whip hit Rizu, Rizu quickly realized Xiao Qiao's identity. However, Rizu's powerful divine sense was not hurt by the god-beating whip. Then, another huge lightning palm grabbed at Xiao Qiao. 5 Thunder's divine clock, Big Black. Take Xiao Qiao and leave quickly. Yi Fei's eyes were red. He blocked the huge lightning palm with his fastest speed. There was a loud bang. This palm hit half of Yi Fei's body, causing half of his body to go numb. His golden body of laws could not withstand the terror of Rizu's divine sense. His body fell to the ground like a kite with a broken string. Squeak! Seeing that Yi Fei was seriously injured, Xiao Chao's face suddenly showed great anger. Then, this anger turned into a mysterious five-colored light that appeared in Xiao Chao's hand. Whoosh! Xiao Chao waved his small hand and used this five-colored light to attack Rizu's huge lightning palm. The five-colored light silently blasted a huge hole in the huge lightning palm. Behind the hole was Rizu's shocked and terrified face. At this moment, his originally huge body suddenly shrank to the size of a normal person. It was a middle-aged man covered in lightning. Facing the five-colored light released by Xiao Chao in anger, the middle-aged man seemed to be extremely afraid. Not only did he not dare to approach Xiao Chao, he even retreated quickly. He tried to escape. Squeak! You want to leave after bullying Yi Fei? Xiao Chao will kill you. The dragon turtle raised a small wooden sign and translated Xiao Chao's words at the same time. Xiao Chao also looked very angry. Seeing that the five-colored light was effective against Rizu, Xiao Chao immediately became spirited. He waved his small hand and an even more terrifying five-colored light formed a terrifying pillar of light. In an instant, it completely enveloped Rizu, who was retreating. No break for me! Rizu, who was enveloped by the divine light, actually let out an extremely terrified roar. He released lightning in an attempt to break free from the five-colored light and escape back to Rinzu's army. Unfortunately, the five-colored light was very tough. No matter how Rizu attacked, he could not break it. However, Xiao Chao thought of something and suddenly raised his small hand towards the sky. Rizu's consciousness uncontrollably rushed towards the sky. When Xiao Chao's hand fell, Rizu's consciousness crashed to the ground like a meteor. It landed face first. Rizu was so angry that his consciousness trembled. Yi Fei was also stunned. Could this be the inheritance of the spirit immortal tribe that Xiao Chao obtained? Now, not only can Xiao Chao use the deity-beating whip to attack souls, but he can also use the five-colored light to imprison Renzu's consciousness? Suddenly, a strong sense of hope rose in Yi Fei's heart. He immediately said to Xiao Chao, "Xiao Chao, don't stop. Continue to beat him. Beat him as hard as you can." Despicable Rizu, didn't you want to possess me? Didn't you want to steal my bloodline? Now that you've fallen into Xiao Chao's hands, I'll teach you a lesson. When Yi Fei thought about how Rizu had almost broken into his celestial palace and seized his soul, he broke out in a cold sweat. Xiao Chao also glared. Xiao Chao was also very angry right now. And once Xiao Chao got angry, the consequences would be very serious. Xiao Chao raised his hand. Rizu's consciousness was immediately immobilized by the five-colored light and thrown into the sky. When Xiao Chao's hand fell, Rizu's face, which was covered in lightning, crashed to the ground at the fastest speed possible, smashing a deep hole in the ground. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.